What's up guys, Chaos Shinobi here. This is What If Naruto Was Neglected by His Family. Summary: Naruto Namikaze, the eldest son of 3 siblings. Sealed with the soul of the Kyuubi on the day of his siblings' birth. Constantly hated and shunned by both village and family, Naruto builds hatred in his heart. Naruto will now walk a path that will change not only himself but also the world. Chapter 1. Wah. Congratulations, the doctor said as the newborn continues to wail. Thank you, the newly made father told the doctor that helped bring his child into the world. The man appeared to be in his mid-30s to early 40s. It was obvious at first glance that the man that spoke as a ninja. You could tell just by looking at him, his Hittite that he wore, the way he moved with the gracefulness of a trained dancer but with the deadliness of a predator, and his kunai and shuriken holster and pouch. The newly made father was roughly 5'10". Not too short but at the same time not too tall. A good average height for a male of his stature. The man obviously had muscle. Not the bulky type as if his muscles were growing muscles, but ones that showed that they were meant for a purpose. It clearly showed his dedication to his training. This man had brown-colored eyes with matching eyebrows. He had an average nose size with a slightly pronounced jawline. But the most pronounced feature of this man would be his two-toned hair. One side was black while the other was white. This man is Shin Uzumaki, or at least that's what he calls himself now. You see, Shin doesn't even know who he is. One day he just woke up with no information as to whom he is or about where he came from. Even though he didn't know about himself, he certainly knew about the world around him. An example of this is that across the elemental nations there are various clans that are continuously fighting each other for not only power, but also for land and money. The 2 most prominent clans would easily have to be the clan with the eyes of the demon and the clan of 1,000 techniques, the Uchiha and Senju clans. These 2 clans have always clashed since a time before even history can remember. But one thing remains certain: whenever Uchiha and Senju meet, it always ended in blood being shed, be they innocent or not. Flashback. It actually came as a bit of surprise to Shin when he realized that he woke up in a tent. After this revelation, did Shin actually take the proper time to look around and observe his surroundings? It was when he began his observing that he noticed that he was in handcuffs that also had ink markings on them. Seals. He then continued observing the rest of his surroundings, beginning with the tent. It was an average-sized tent that was colored a simple brown. It had enough space for an average person to sleep comfortably in. It wasn't anything fancy, but it possessed enough quality that he deemed it a bit above average. Shin himself was covered in a blanket and his head rested on a fluffed pillow. Looking more closely, he realized that streams of sunlight were peering through the cloth of the tent, telling him that it was daytime. He didn't get any more time to observe the tent because at that time someone walked in. "Oh, so you are awake?" told the newly introduced person. Judging by the tone of the person's voice, the person was female. As soon as he heard the female speak, he shifted his black/brown eyes to her. Shin would later deny to himself that his heartbeat increased as he looked upon her form. She had flowing dark red hair that was roughly about mid-shoulder length, along with a body that told that she was a shinobi that was dedicated to her training. This was told from her toned arms and legs. She wore a simple white kimono that went down to about mid-calf level and cut at the elbows. It was split so that it showed the flawless slightly tanned skin of her leg, revealing her black/brown form-fitting shorts that reached down to her knees. She had a black short-sleeved or cut-sleeve shirt that showed off her blossoming breasts that immediately told him that she was in the beginning stages of puberty, along with black shinobi sandals and medic tape that was wrapped around her leg until it reached her mid-shin length. Her lips were pink and smooth, but what truly caught his attention would be her eyes. She had violet eyes that expressed her happiness at one thing or another. Overall, Shin thought that she was stunning and knew that in a few years she would be outright beautiful. Well, at least to him. "Tosan, he's awake," the now beautiful redhead told someone. Outside, a man that was clearly a well-trained shinobi entered the tent. Like his daughter, he also had red hair along with violet eyes. However, his was a shade lighter. You could tell that they were father and daughter by their similar oval jawline. "I am Kei Uzumaki and this is my daughter, Naomi Uzumaki. When we discovered you, you were unconscious, on our land. What happened that caused you to come to our land in such a state?" The newly introduced Kei explained with a calm tone. I don't know. I don't know who I am or what I'm doing here." A now shocked Shin spoke. Kei frowned at the claim of amnesia, easily showing that he wasn't so quick into believing the supposed claim of amnesia. After all, he is a shinobi and a shinobi's #1 weapon is deception. It could be possible that this supposed amnesiac boy was a spy from an enemy clan trying to steal some of their precious scripts of Fuyu and Jutsu. Whether he was telling the truth or not, Kei knew that he was going to find out soon. "Wait here and rest. I'll return soon with something that will tell us whether you are telling the truth, or not." Nori. Come and watch him with Naomi, I'll return with the seals soon. Kei told both Shin and another man that was part of the group of ninja outside. The new man, Nori, possessed slightly colored red hair along with light blue eyes. He had a scar going vertically down his left eye. Lucky for him that he still had his left eye intact. Soon enough, Kei returned with a scroll that had markings on it. Shin mentally assumed, correctly, that it was a seal that would prove whether he was telling the truth or he was lying. Kei fully unrolled the scroll that showed 2 blank circles on it. The rest was covered in ink scriptures. Place both of your hands into the circles. Once you have, we will run chakra through the scroll and this will cause the seals to travel onto your body. Do not remove your hands from the scroll until we tell you to. If you do, there is a possibility of killing yourself or possibly being forced to tell the truth for the rest of your life. After the seals have covered your body, we will then ask you our questions. If your response are true, then some of the seals will converge onto the scroll and write either true or false. If you are telling the truth to our questions and you do not mean to harm us, then we will treat you as a guest that brought to us by unfortunate circumstances. Do you understand? Kei calmly told the young stranger in a tone that brokered no arguments. Shin could do nothing more than swallow whatever was left of his little saliva to clear his dry throat and nod to the intimidating Uzumaki. Just as Kei told him, as soon as he placed his hands on the 2 circles. The 2 Uzumaki, Kei, and Nori, ran their chakra through the scroll causing snake-like ink to climb over his body. After both Uzumaki finished, which took roughly 5 minutes, the ink finally settled down onto his skin. There were ink markings crisscrossing across his face, his arms, legs, hands, feet, torso, back, and stomach. Now that that is finished, the rest shouldn't take too long. First, what is your name? Second, why are you on our land? Third, what do you remember before you woke up? Fourth question, do you mean any of us, or the Uzumaki clan any harm or ill will? Kei told the now sealed boy. Shin answered, after swallowing a bit more saliva, with a little stuttering and hesitation, first Q question, I don't know. Telling the elder ninja in a bit of a panicked and frustrated tone. Swallows, second question, I don't know. Breathes in deeply. Third, only the knowledge about our current world. Fourth question. It was as Shin was about to answer the question, that he thought that something was strange. I've already told them that I don't know who I am or why I'm here, so why ask me if I'm a threat? If this seal proves that I don't know who I am, then why ask something I won't know? Mentally confounded a bit by the oddness of a question that appears redundant. No. Shin finished slightly confused and worried. The ink from Shin's body once again started moving, but this time it moved onto the scroll. The ink assumed the kanji for first, second, third, and fourth in a horizontal row with a small amount of space between each. The ink scripts beneath each number began to form into readable kanji. First true, second true, third true, fourth. Even after a full 2 minutes the fourth still hadn't finalized. It was only when it was ironically approaching the 4th minute that it finalized. Fourth true. The moment that the final kanji turned into the word true, Shin released a shaky breath. Clearly showing his thankfulness to Fu and Jutsu for making it possible for him to live without being forced to go through torture. Ninjas did not interrogate lightly. Especially if lied to. I gave you my word that we would treat you like a guest. Kei told the now relieved boy. As both Kei and Nori began channeling chakra through the scroll to return the seals back to their original position, Shin began to ask the question that had been bugging him. For that last question, if you already knew that I don't remember anything, then why would I harm you? Kei looked at him through his light violet eyes, unnerving him a bit with his piercing stare. Well, you see, even though you might not remember who you are, there's a chance that you were still a danger to the rest of my clan. When we came upon you, we were able to sense a large amount of chakra within you. Which means that you must be trained in the ninja arts. If that is true, then it must mean that you're going to be one of 3 things, an enemy, an ally, or neutral. If you were a part of an enemy clan, then more than likely your subconscious might remember a couple of things that you could not consciously. At the beginning, the seal took roughly 5 minutes to stabilize. This time was taken to do 2 things. First was to check your body for possible seals or poisons that could be causing this amnesia, and the second was for the seal to properly connect with your subconscious. The check was to see if any seals or any other methods that could be purposely causing this amnesia. If someone created a seal or used a poison to cause this amnesia and you were part of an enemy clan, then eventually this poison or seal would disperse or be turned off. Then we would have an enemy spy in the middle of our camp. Shin took in all of this information, and after properly processing it, he had to agree with the Uzumaki leader. After all, it was best to be cautious and properly check something than to skip over an important detail that could lead to many of your family's deaths. It was around this time that not only was the Fu and Jutsu seals completely off, but also was the seal cuffs. The moment that the cuffs were off, Shin could feel it. His chakra, It felt so empowering. Like he could do anything with it. But this only lasted a few seconds before he got himself under control. "Come, join us. I told you that we were going to treat like a guest and it would be bad manners to not invite you to have lunch with us," said the leader of the Uzumaki with a grin on his face with the prospect of food. "Thank you," Shin politely replied. Now that the whole interrogation thing was finished, Naomi decided to say her part. "Well, come on. We don't have all day for your lazy ass." Shin just stupidly nods his head and follows the small group of Uzumaki, instinctively knowing that he didn't want to be on the wrong end of feminine fury. Shiver. Now that he finally got out of that tent, he continued to observe his surroundings more. He saw that they were in the middle of a grass clearing and surrounded by trees. There was a reasonably sized stream nearby that probably flowed with fish and fresh water. Judging by the sun's position overhead, Shin would guess that it would be roughly around noon. There were also some random clouds in the sky that provided temporary cover. There was also the ocean about quarter a mile out. The smell of salt in the air from the light breeze and the barely heard sounds of the waves crashing against the shore, all led him to this conclusion. He saw that there were 5 tents set up in a circular formation. He guessed that this was a group of about 8 Uzumaki. But, then again, they are ninja. He assumed this because it would make sense to have about 2 teams of 4 checking the areas around and in their land. Though Shin also knew that this must be on the outer area of their land. He was finally able to sort his head enough so that he remembered who he was dealing with. The Uzumaki clan. The Uzumaki were famed for their Fuyu and Jutsu and their longevity. It was said that the Uzumaki clan lived on a hidden island surrounded by whirlpools. Next thing he knew, he was feeling a blinding pain on the top of his head. "I told you to hurry the hell up. And what do? Look around like an idiot," Naomi shouted at him after taking her fist off of the bump that she made on his head. Clearly unhappy that her food is being delayed because of someone's foolishness. And so, Shin quickly followed along to avoid getting pummeled again. As soon as he got there, he politely accepted a fish from Naomi. As he was about halfway through his fish when he noticed Naomi looking at him intently. Seeing her intense stare and feeling uncomfortable, he began to shift nervously. Blushing a bit, he eventually came out and just asked, "What?" She just continues to stare at him with that same stare until she says, "You need a name that we can call you by." "What?" "You heard me. I said that you need a name." Yeah, Shin is a good name. That's what we'll call you from now on. Shin." She says this with a smile on her beautiful face. He felt a small blush creeping up on him from having her give a name to him. "Shin, I like it." He grinned one of those full-blown face grins that forced his brown eyes closed. And flashback. And that is why he is now called Shin. Since then he's stayed with the Uzumaki clan. Don't get him wrong, it wasn't just like they let him live with them right away. Nope, it took quite some time for him to even gain enough trust to move into the village. You see, after Shin was given his name and was left to his thoughts, he realized that he was alone in a world where death was a common sight. Knowing this, he asked the Uzumaki if he could stay with them, after stating his reason. After hearing his request, Kei began to gather the members of their group and contemplate his request. Since they knew that he really didn't remember anything about himself and he wasn't an enemy, they couldn't just leave him with nothing. But at the same time they couldn't just bring him back to the village. Eventually, an idea was formed of what they could do with him. They agreed and told Shin that they can't bring him into their village because of a security risk, but they could let him use a piece of land that they were currently on to live in, that they would check up on him occasionally. Shin readily agreed to this idea. Happy that he wasn't being forced to start off from nothing. The Uzumaki shinobi left after giving Shin a map of a bit of the surrounding area and a bit of equipment such as the tent that he was using. Even though the Uzumaki left, Kei ordered one of his men to stay and watch the boy. After all, this is the ninja world, always look underneath the underneath. The Uzumaki group eventually returned to Uzushiogaku and reported their find to the rest of the clan. Kei told them that Shin really was a boy that had lost his memories. After taking everything into account, the Uzumaki clan decided to test the boy's loyalty. They told Kei that if Shin should stay only within that piece of land while being watched by their ninja for a year and a half, then he could move into the village. And so the next day Kei and his team returned to find Shin fishing for, well, fish. After hearing about the offer, Shin agreed excitedly. After a year and a half of living in the forest, Shin was finally able to move into the village. During his time in the forest, whenever the Uzumaki group would visit Shin, he would always see Naomi. Apparently she knew that he didn't have that many people his age or otherwise to talk to. Thus took it upon herself to help the boy feel not as lonely as he would otherwise. Shin eventually admitted to himself that he had fallen hopelessly in love with her. When Shin was finally allowed to enter the village, he was given the offer to join their village as a ninja if he wished. Shin was in fact quite surprised by this offer. and accepted it quite quickly. Shin later learned that the only reason why he got that offer was because Kei was able to see that Shin had great control over his chakra and had a few useful jutsu that he was able to get through muscle memory, which also proved that someone trained him in the ninja arts. Even though at first this was a bit suspicious, the watcher that they had on him informed them that he in fact forced himself to learn these jutsu over time. It wasn't as if he was able to pull it off on the first try, but instead had taken about a month to get down a simple earth wall. After all, muscle memory isn't perfect and it took a bit of guessing to get it down right. This led the Uzumaki clan to the conclusion that Shin was learning this from muscle memory and whatever pieces of subconscious that he was able to remember before his memory loss. Even though he was offered the position as a ninja, there were a couple of conditions. Those conditions were, 1 that he couldn't learn Fuyu and Jutsu besides the simple stuff and 2 that he couldn't venture outside the village without an escort. Even though Shin didn't really like the second condition, he understood and agreed with it. Shin eventually came to love the second condition when he found out that his escort would usually be Naomi. Over the years, he and Naomi came closer together until eventually they started going out. From there they took things slowly and eventually married when they were roughly 25, but it wasn't as if the entire world wasn't moving during that time. Oh, no. Things changed in the shinobi world. Perhaps the biggest change would be when both the leader of the Uchiha clan, Madara Uchiha, and the leader of the Senju clan, Hashirama Senju, formed a village together. This village is now called Konoha. This also sparked other countries and clans to build villages. The Shodaime Hokage, Hashirama Senju, eventually created an alliance with the Uzumaki and he married Mito Senju. Shin was unfortunately absent when Hashirama came to not finalize the alliance between the Senju and Uzumaki by marrying Mito Uzumaki, the current clan head. He was on a mission outside the village when it occurred with Naomi and thus was not able to catch a glimpse of the famed Shodai Hokage. It was a couple of years after the creation of Konoha that Madara Uchiha left the village and eventually came back planning to destroy it with the Kyuubi. This led to Hashirama and Madara doing battle on what is now called the Valley of the End. In the end, Hashirama was forced to kill Madara to protect Konoha and all of her innocent people. Yet this grand battle was not the end of the happenings in the world. Far from it, in fact. You see, the various villages were moving onto each other's land and trying to gain more money. This caused an increase in violence and chaos. But most of all death. This time period of clashes was halted thanks to the effort of the Shodai Hokage. He did this by having the Baijuu distributed to the 5 great shinobi villages and Taki, after they sent an assassin after him. He distributed them after the first meeting of the 5 Shodaikages. He distributed the Baijuu so that they would balance the military power of the 5 great villages and try to prevent more conflict and violence, but mainly, death. It was near after this distribution that Hashirama soon passed. In fact, it was soon after his marriage to Naomi that the Shodai died. Hashirama appointed his younger brother Tobirama Senju as the Nidaime Hokage. Tobirama Senju was an incredibly skilled Suiten user. It was said that he had such great control over Suiten or water jutsu that he was able to create water from thin air. He was also incredibly adept at seal usage, to the point of creating a seal called the Hirashin. This jutsu allowed him to transport himself to the seal's location. Unfortunately, the piece that the Shodai Hokage died trying to achieve was all for naught, for shortly after Tobirama took the mantle of Hokage the first great shinobi war happened. The war had continued for roughly 5 years until it eventually came to its inevitable close. Even then, the peace that came from the ending of the First Great War was only the calm before the storm. The peace that was created only lasted 20 years before the Second Great Ninja War occurred. This war was brought about because of conflicts between Konoha, Suna, Ame, and Iwa. It was during the 20-year peace reign that Tobirama Senju passed the mantle of Hokage on to one of his disciples, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Once the Second Great Ninja War came to be, Konoha was led by the leadership of the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Before he resigned from his position, Tobirama Senju created a branch unit of Anbu called Naruto. This unit was founded upon the principles of what a shinobi is. To give up everything, even your emotions and life, for the order of your village. It was during an Anbu operation in Kuma that the Nidaime Hokage, Tobirama Senju, passed away. Tobirama willingly sacrificed himself to Kuma's forces in order to allow a chance for his team to escape. It was also during this time, just before he died, that he proclaimed Hiruzen Sarutobi as the Sandaime Hokage. The war had continued for 5 more grueling years and the Second Great Ninja War appeared closer to reaching a conclusion. This war gave birth to a group of ninja called the Sannin, or the legendary 3 ninja. This group was composed of the snake genius Orochimaru, the gallant Jiraiya, and the legendary medic Tsunade. These 3 earned their title when they battled the Amakage Hanzo the Salamander. Hanzo was impressed by the skill that they possessed, and as a gift for impressing him, He gave the three the title Sanin and allowed them to live. And that brings us to the present. Last year Naomi was finally able to get pregnant. And now about 9 to 10 months later his beautiful baby is being born. Even though this is one of the greatest moments of Shin's life, it is also going to be one of his saddest and most regretful. This is because even though it was not well known, Shin Uzumaki is dying. Shin first realized something was wrong around the time when they got news of Naomi being pregnant. The first sign that something was wrong was when one day he started coughing blood. This of course worried the two new parents. After visiting the hospital in the village and getting checked out by a medic, did they realize what happened? Shin was injected with a slow-acting poison. Somehow Shin's body was able to fight the poison to a standstill for a long period of time, years worth of time, by checking how advanced the poison has progressed and taking into account Shin's unusual bodily resistance. The medics came to the conclusion that Shin was poisoned when he was fairly young. They estimated around the age of 10 to 15. This finally explained one of the many questions Shin had about where he was from and why he couldn't remember anything. Apparently someone tried to kill him, and they succeeded, just about 30 to 35 years into the future. The medics say that he only has roughly a year left to live. Ever since the moment that Shin received the news that he was not only dying but also when the poisoning occurred, he simply couldn't stop thinking about his lost memories. Constantly thinking about his memories, every day, for hours at a time. Even when he was with Naomi and was trying to be the best husband he could, he still thought about them. That's when it happened. He was finally able to break through the thick fog of amnesia and peer into his lost memories. What he saw in there made him leap in joy and cringe and weep in sadness. He received his memories just yesterday and already had a meeting planned between him, Naomi, and Naomi's father and head of the Uzumaki clan since Mito became the wife of the Shodaime Hokage, Kei Uzumaki. But sometimes things just don't go according to plan, and this was one of those times. As the meeting was about to begin, Naomi's water broke at the exact time, thus leading to the meeting being over before it even began. And so after Naomi woke from the stress of giving birth, they agreed that they would have the meeting again in 1 week's time. After telling this to Kei, he readily agreed. 1 week later we see Shin Uzumaki, his wife Naomi Uzumaki, and Naomi's father Kei Uzumaki sitting around their dining room table. "Shin, you called the two of us here because you were finally able to regain some of your memories," intoned Kei with his age-old hardened voice. As Kei is saying this, Naomi looks upon his form with an intense glare that eerily reminded him of the glare she gave him the first time the two met. However, beneath said glare, Shin could easily see in her eyes happiness along with sadness and the pain that followed it. The happiness must have been from 1, finally giving birth to their child. 2, that Shin was finally able to regain the memories that were hidden within the dense fog of his mind. That he would finally stop obsessing over who he was and could now focus on who he is. The pain and sadness was brought upon by thoughts that he won't be here any longer. That he won't be here with her and their newborn. That he won't be here to see their beautiful baby girl grow up. "Hi, Kei-sama, my birth name is Itama Senju." Kei looks upon Itama's form in shock. After all, anyone who knew the history of Hashirama Senju knew this name. Just as he is about to ask Itama something, Kei heard a very distinctive and very familiar sound to his left. "You're a Senju?" was Naomi's way of expressing her shock over the fact that her wonderful husband was in fact part of one of the strongest clans in history, along with pointing her index finger at him. She eventually retracted her hand and rubbed the back of her head in a sheepish manner as both her father and husband sent her a deadpan expression. "As I was going to ask before I was rudely interrupted," with a pointed glance at his now blushing daughter, "how are you still alive, Itama-san?" Kei asked with an expression and tone that showed that he knew exactly who Itama really was. "To-san, do you know him? Why do you think he should already be dead?" Naomi retaliated against her father with hints of her sadness when she spoke of him dying. "There is only one Senju that I know of that was named Itama, and that Senju died roughly 20 to 25 years ago. But the reason why I even remember this Senju and his name is because Itama is, or at least, was the youngest brother of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju." Naomi's violet eyes widened at the newest revelation. As she turns her pupil-widened eyes upon her husband's exhausted and sickly form, she began to think of the larger impact this information would have upon the world. The youngest brother of the famed Senju brothers, alive. It was immediately after thinking that final sentence that she realized she was wrong. Not alive, barely alive. "So Itama, explain to us how you are still alive." Kei questioned his daughter's husband with the full authority of clan head of the Uzumaki clan. Itama closes his eyes as the memories of his past begin to boil over into his mind. Flashback. We've finally got one. One of the heirs to that thrice-damned Senju clan. A man with blood-red eyes says with obvious ill intent. Indeed. Finally. After all this time and planning, We've finally done it. A 13-year-old Itama Senju gazed upon the group of demons that surrounded him. Itama had finally reached the age when he was forced to go to the front lines and fight for his clan, his family. Itama was always a kind boy and always had reservations about killing others. However, his father, Butsuma Senju, believed that showing emotion was against how a real shinobi fights. This is what led Itama to be surrounded by these red-eyed demons. Their tomoe-marked eyes lazily spinning upon 18-slashed vertical lines that appear to be originating from the pupil. These eyes clearly showed not only their hatred but also their wanting to kill. Itama, not seeing a way out of certain death, asked one of the most stupidest questions he could. Are you going to kill me? The eerie silence that fell over him along with their bloody eyes placed so much pressure upon him that it felt as if he was drowning in air. No. Itama released a slight breath at knowing that he wasn't going to die, or at least not right away. Then he remembered that this was war and that sometimes dying would actually be better than living. Then. What or why are you going to do to me? Itama finally spit out. Judging by the smiles that appear upon their insane faces, Itama deduced that it'll be nothing good. You see, you are the third in line to become head of the Senju clan. Even though you don't appear to know it, you possess some political power. If we take you and present you to the various lords of different countries, it'll show just how incompetent the Senju clan really is to have one of their heirs captured. It will show just how pathetic the Senju clan really is. While at the same time it will show that the Uchiha can easily capture the heir of one of our greatest enemies. This will significantly boost our reputation and money income. One of the red-eyed demons spoke with obvious glee at the plan. After the realization of being captured and being held prisoner finally took hold upon the young Senju's mind, he quickly took it upon himself to try and discover a way free. It was during this thinking process that he realized something. Wait, the moment that I haven't returned. They will search F for my B body. If they don't find it, then they're going to assume that I've been taken and they would try to take me back. Itama questions them on the sanity of their plan. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. You see, that's one of the best parts. There is an Uchiha Kinjutsu called Izanagi. By sacrificing one of your eyes you can blur the lines of reality and illusion. You can make it so that if you are going to die, then you can create an illusion that you are alive and make that a reality while at the same time making your death an illusion. However, the true power of Izanagi only appears when you mix both Senju and Uchiha blood. And lucky for us, here you are Senju. Through various experimentations and many blinded Sharingan eyes of our fallen brothers and sisters, we've discovered how to create a living clone of another. Unfortunately, the clone is not perfect. We can create it with every single thing, down to the last eyelash, but the clone has no life force to live, thus is practically useless. But in this case we can create a clone of you that won't be alive and kill it, thus tricking your clan into thinking that you are dead. Of course the Senju are going to argue that you aren't really Butsuma's third son, so we're going to make one major change with this clone copy that will prove that you are the real one. We are going to make the clone you without a brain. You quite literally can't remove a brain without leaving some sign of doing it. Thus that will be the proof that you are who you are. It was at this moment that true dread and fear began to filter within Itama. He knew that if this were to happen, that if he were to be taken prisoner, then it would be a major blow to his family and many of his family members would die. After obtaining some of Itama's blood, the red-eyed demons injected the crimson fluid directly into their eyes. Unfortunately the boost of power to their eyes was only temporary until their bodies naturally destroy the foregained body. One of the blood-eyed devils said after preparing to blind his own eye, "Now, let's begin." Izanagi in front of Itama seemed to be a rippling mirage in the air. Soon enough there was a being with the same body and shape as him. This thing had the same dual hair color as him, same height and all. However, its eyes looked glazed over, as if it wasn't thinking of anything or was staring off into space. "Good, now, we kill you," spoke the Uchiha that had one of his eyes closing. They proceeded to pummel and slice the clone while placing a picture of fear onto it. They finally ended this aggressive therapy by stabbing their blades straight through the dual-haired clone's body. To Itama, he just quite literally saw himself die a gruesome death and is now peering at his dead body. As he gazes upon his clone's body, he began to think about how much he loved his family and how he would try his best to escape this hell, or die trying. End flashback. I was lucky, my father, Butsuma Senju, was cautious enough of my first time in the field that he sent a backup group in case anything extreme happened. Once they saw the transgression with the Uchiha, they decided to intervene. During the confrontation I made my escape, or at least tried. It was during this attempted escape that I was poisoned by one of the Uchiha, sneaky bastards. However, I was not only poisoned but I also received an injury when one of the Uchiha broke away from the fight and tried to recapture me. I'm guessing that both groups killed each other at a further location. I was able to kill the Uchiha by using an explosive tag that I was able to hide on my person. The unfortunate part was that I was close enough to the blast that I was thrown through the air and hit my head on a boulder. It's at this point things began to blur, but all I knew was that if I didn't run then I was going to die. I began to run in a random direction until I finally fell unconscious. My natural vitality and life force was able to close most of the head injury, but that's all it was able to do. The poison was a slow-acting poison that would give me a slow painful death. My body instinctually healed the thing that would kill me first, and that was the head wound. It left the poison to run rampant within my body until the wound was healed enough that I wasn't in danger of dying immediately. My body then immediately went to destroy the toxin. However, the poison already had enough time in my body that it was too effective. My body was instead able to suppress the poison, but it never went away, until now appeared. Both Kei and Naomi felt for the senju, being forced from your family and as a tool to be used against them. Hell, being forced to watch as people you describe as demons literally get the closest thing to killing you since genjutsu. So, what will you do now? Will you go to Kono? No. I might have been born as a senju, but on that day Atama Senju really did die. I have lived my life as Shin Uzumaki. I became a ninja of Uzoshiogakure as Shin Uzumaki. I married as Shin Uzumaki. I have a daughter as Shin Uzumaki. I value every portion of my life that was once Atama, but that life has passed. So now, I'm going to die as Shin Uzumaki of Uzoshiogakure. Kei looks upon Ida no Shin with pride evident in his eyes, clearly showing how happy he was that his daughter was able to find someone that loved his village and family as much as he did. While Naomi reaches out to him and places a kiss on him that conveyed all her love and adoration for him. Wah, wah. Was the unanimous response to the cries of the newborn babe. With some difficulty Shin eventually picks himself up and walks to the other room along with Naomi, followed by Kei. Shin opens the sliding door panel revealing a modest room with a crib in the middle with a crying baby girl. The newborn girl inherited her looks from her mother. The same violet eyes with that dark crimson hair with blackened tips. With Kei standing near the door watching the two new parents take care of their newborn daughter, he let loose a tear to show his happiness at how happy his family currently was. Shin walks over to the crib and picked up his daughter and said, "It's okay my little swirling princess. It's okay, my beautiful Kushina-chan." Rebirth. Hatred. It is the all-consuming feeling of rage against something, be it person, animal, or thing. Hatred goes hand in hand with the action of revenge. To give out justice upon something or someone that you believe has wronged you. Both of these words, thoughts, emotions, actions are all at the center of the ninja world. Constantly people are trying their best to not only survive but also protect what they call home. In all of the villages within the elemental nations, 5 exist above the others. These 5 are known as Konoha, Suna, Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri. Each village is the highest point of military power within that country. Konoha exists within Hai no Kuni, Iwa within Tusuki no Kuni, Suna within Kaze no Kuni, Kumo within Kaminari no Kuni, and Kiri within Mizu no Kuni. Each country is controlled by the daimyo or feudal lord. The daimyo heavily sponsors their country's primary village for maximum military might. In the ninja hierarchy, there is one that is the equivalent of the daimyo, and they are the kages. Each kage is appointed the position based on physical abilities, mental abilities, motivation, and the respect and love of the people of their village. The kage's duty is to always protect and place the village and her people above everything, above yourself, your friends, your family. In the words of the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, abandoning one's village is just as bad as abandoning your own child. He told this very same phrase to his red-headed wife, Kushina Uzumaki, on the day that the Kyuubi was able to break free of its seal due to the efforts of a deranged madman. The Kyuubi, also known as the Kyuubi no Yoko or nine-tailed demon fox. In truth it is a massive corrosive chakra that is sentient. The Kyuubi is not the only one of these creatures that exists in the world. There are a total of 9 of these chakra beings. Due to the massive amount of chakra that each possesses, humans covet these beings for their own designs. This resulted in the creation of a being known as a Jinchuriki. A Jinchuriki is a person that the tailed beast is sealed within through use of Fuun Jutsu. The seal would allow the Jinchuriki to access their tailed beast's chakra and use it as their own. There are of course many difficult complications in not only creating the Jinchuriki but also having the Jinchuriki properly use and control their Baiju's chakra. A Baiju's chakra also possesses their will inside of it. Thus when a Jinchuriki tries to forcefully take their tenant's chakra, the Baiju will most of the time attempt to take control of their warden's body to free themselves. It's the Jinchuriki's job to keep their Baijuu properly sealed and to be able to use their Baijuu's chakra when needed. This creates a constant battle of wills between the Jinchuriki and their tenant to see who will stay in control. Creating a Jinchuriki is just as difficult, if not more so, than using said Baijuu's chakra. In order to create a Jinchuriki, one needs to first capture or restrain the Baijuu so that you can properly capture the tailed beast within the sealing array. Considering that the Baijuu are several stories high, that by itself is an incredibly imposing job. The next step is to seal the Baijuu within the container. The human has to be either a baby or a young child. This is because a child's chakra coils are still malleable and can stretch to handle the stress of a Baijuu's chakra. For an adult, their chakra coils are already hardened and thus will rip under such extreme stress. There are only a handful of unique circumstances that create an exception for this rule. In the middle of the night, a pair of ethereal blue fox eyes unfolded themselves. These eyes quickly took in their surroundings and found themselves in the middle of a dirty alley that had a dumpster near the end. After awakening from the dredges of darkness, the so-called child took a moment to organize his thoughts. The youngster soon recalled his most recent memories. Growling softly, damn them all. Recalling how he was on his way home when he was beaten by a pair of drunk villagers. The smell of alcohol permeating the air as they breathed. Recalling how one of their fists buried into his gut and how another upon his head. After dropping to the floor, they then proceeded to kick him until they got bored. Gently lifting himself off the ground, Naruto looked himself over for any lasting injuries. He noticed a fair amount of cuts along with large number of bruises. A few of his bones were probably bruised or cracked. After assessing that nothing was permanently damaged, Naruto began his walk home, or at least to the family house. Naruto is the eldest son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. When the Kyuubi was released from his mother and went into a berserk rampage through Konoha, the Ondaime was able to use his Hirashin to not only deflect one of its Baijuu Udama but also able to transport it to the outskirts of the village. Without another option, the two were forced to seal the living mass of chakra into their own children, in order to prevent the destruction of their home and the deaths of innocent civilians. This was how he became a Jinchuriki along with his younger siblings. Naruto was born about 1 year before either of his siblings on December 24. Minato and Kushina were worried that Naruto would have some mark on him from being born in the Kyuubi's presence, but instead of some birthmark or scarring, Naruto was born with fox eyes. He possessed a silted pupil. The eye color was blue. But not a sky blue like Minato's but a midnight blue. His eyes weren't the only thing that were peculiar about him, it was also his hair. Unlike both Minato and Kushina, Naruto had black hair. It was a bit odd to them until they thought that perhaps Naruto inherited his hair color from his grandparents. Kushina remembered that her mother had once told her that her father had black hair. During the entire childbirth procedure, Minato constantly worried about all the things that could go wrong, someone breaking through the barrier or perhaps something happening to Kushina or Naruto. He couldn't even bring himself to think about what would happen if the Kyuubi somehow broke free. The final answer that he always came back to would be that his wife would probably die from either the extraction or in the aftermath. As for himself, he would probably die from sealing the creature into his own child. He could never ask another to give up their child when he could not himself. After Naruto was born without any major problems arising, Minato brought his concerns about seal to his wife. Kushina understood her husband's worries. She would never want the life of a true Jinchuriki upon them. Since that moment they began to research different ways to seal the Baijuu away without it possibly costing them their lives and that of their children. They say children because they knew that they wanted to have more than just one child, so they needed to be prepared in case the worst happened. As it turned out, on October 10 a madman was able to disrupt the seal during the childbirth and was able to free the Kyuubi. It forced both of them to seal the Kyuubi into their 3 children. The seal that they created performed a slightly different action than what they wanted. What they wanted the seal to do was divide the Kyuubi's chakra into its yin and yang portions and seal each within one of their children. The chakra of the Kyuubi was too great for any newborn to hold, so they developed a way to separate its chakra into its inherent darker and lighter portions. The seal that they ultimately created was different from what they originally wanted. What they wanted was that in case of an emergency, they could split the Kyuubi's chakra into its yin and yang portions, then proceed to seal these separate portions into their children. The difference between this seal and what they wanted to create was that instead of just splitting the Kyuubi's chakra to its yin and yang, it took it a step further and split the beast's conscious thought from its own chakra. There was a bright side to this new discovery. This new seal was based upon the Shiki Fujin dead demon consuming seal, in that it instead split the Kyuubi's mind from its chakra and then continued on to split its chakra into its yin and yang portions. A seal of this magnitude always came at a high price. In this case it cost them large amounts of their life force for the seal to have enough energy to divide the Kyuubi into 3 separate portions. This led to the creation of 3 Jinchuriki from 1 by Juo. However, unlike the Shiki Fujin, this seal required less energy to seal these similar portions than the entire beast at once. Naruto's younger brother, Menma, became the Jinchuriki of the Yang Chakra. Menma was born with a tuft of sun-kissed blonde hair and sky-blue eyes. His jaw and some major portions of his facial features derived from his mother. He had her oval-like jawline. Similar to Minato, Menma had slightly tanned skin that gave his body a healthy glow. Naruto and Menma's younger sister was named Naomi, after Kushina's mother. She became the Jinchuriki of the Yin Chakra. Naomi was born with vibrant red hair just like her mother, along with Kushina's expressive violet eyes. Her skin tone was the same as her mother's but slightly tanner. Her facial features resembled Minato more than Kushina. They were both born with whisker-like birthmarks that resulted from being exposed to the Kyuubi's chakra for such long periods of time. This caused the two parents to question why this change only affected the twins and not Naruto. They then assumed that the Kyuubi's chakra must have different effects for each individual. With both of his siblings being sealed with the Kyuubi's chakra, Naruto was forced to be sealed with the Kyuubi soul. As they continued growing, Naruto slowly began to drift off from the rest of the family. He became more isolated through his actions. This behavior not only greatly confused and worried both Kushina and Minato, but it hurt them both to see their eldest child being so distant to them. Yet to the siblings, Naruto was always the independent, quiet, older brother. The one that would always go off on his own and come back on his own without anyone to help him. With Naruto being so distant from not only his parents but also his siblings, Minato's and Kushina's attention primarily revolved around Menma and Naomi. To both parents it hurt to see their child already so apart from his own family. To Minato it felt like his own son grew up before he could even be a kid. To Kushina it simply felt as if her heart was being crushed by the distance between them. The small quiet baby that rarely ever let out a cry and sometimes gave that small smile was so far apart that simply looking at this bond made her want to puke from sickness at what it's become. It helped them that they still had 2 other small children that they could connect with. Menma and Naomi were a lot like Kushina as a child. Loud, rude, annoying, and as sweet and happy as can be. Taking care of their 2 youngest children let them forget the pain that was caused by their damaged relationship to their eldest son. The village mimicked this relationship in its own way. The villagers believed that when the Kyuubi soul was sealed within Naruto, that the monster's soul began to corrupt and take over Naruto's own soul and body. History once possessed a saying that the eyes are the windows into the soul. Thus the soul that can be seen within Naruto's body is not Naruto's own soul but the Kyuubi's. This was but one fundamental factor that led to Naruto following a different path of life than either Menma or Naomi could understand. After walking for what felt like hours in silence but was in fact a half an hour, Naruto approached the first steps to his home. Naruto pushed some of his chakra into the seals that were lined across the exterior of the building. The house was an average house with a master bedroom with 3 smaller bedrooms for the siblings, also including a personal office room for Minato. There were the normal rooms such as the kitchen, dining room, bathrooms, and the like. The only room that was forbidden for the siblings to enter was the basement without either Minato's or Kushina's supervision. The room is where both parents kept any of their more secret and personal items, such as jutsu. Outside the house but still on the compound was a training area for practicing different types of jutsu. It was mainly used for tai and kenjutsu spars. Whenever they would see a demonstration in ninjutsu, they would go to a nearby training ground so that they didn't unnecessarily damage the compound. Not that it would with the seals that Minato and Kushina put into place, but they preferred to be on the safe side. The near silent creak of the door as Naruto opened the entrance to the compound being the only sound present at such a time of night. Naruto barely had a thought whether some of his family were even worried about his safety or well-being. Proceeding with an echo of silence during each step. Nothing broke the quietness of the night except the door closing to outside world, enclosing Naruto in a familiar darkness of the home. Completely entrusting his primary sense of sight to his instincts, each step taken with a sense of absolution and certainty that no blind man would have, Naruto eventually reached the front of his room on the 2nd level. Before entering, Naruto grabbed the base of his door handle and twisted exactly 49 degrees clockwise, but only after checking that the small slip of paper and small line of lead were placed firmly in the door and unbroken. After removing both the lead and paper did Naruto enter his room. Naruto's room for the most part is quite Spartan in appearance. The room had a simple desk with a semi-comfortable chair and a simple bed and pillow. Books were neatly placed away on the top shelf of the desk. Quickly closing the door behind him, Naruto immediately surveyed the room for any signs of disturbances in any of his items or the dust in the surrounding corners of the room. Noting no changes to the surrounding area of the room, Naruto walked over to the far left side of the room, directly to the left of the sole window in the room. Crouching to the base corner of the wall, Naruto slid his finger under a small groove in the wall and unlatched the fake wall plank that covered up his small amount of savings and a training kunai with a few other pieces that he considered valuable. Moving all of his valuables into an open spot on the floor, taking the training kunai, Naruto smoothly injected the metal into the very back of the hidden cue board. By lifting the kunai, the fake bottom popped upward. Removing the plank of wood revealed a secondary compartment containing items that Naruto actually thought had some semblance of worth. There were only 3 scrolls of small size that were marked with different colored sides to distinguish amongst the others. Each one was used for its own singular purpose. Only after removing all 3 scrolls and verifying that each scroll possessed their original contents, did Naruto finally allow himself to secure his hidden items. After screwing the wall panel in place, did Naruto ready himself for bed. Removing articles of clothing till he was in nothing else but his boxers, Naruto smoothly slid underneath the silky sheets of his bed, gazing at the moonlight that slipped through the cracks in his window as his head laid upon the pillow. Slowly Naruto fell into a darkness as night as his hair. The next day, Naruto awoke in the hours before even the first rays of sunlight basked the greatness of Konoha. Naruto enjoyed the early mornings, with their crisp air and heavy fog that eventually evaporated from the sun's light. But Naruto didn't enjoy the mornings themselves. Waking up early meant that he was forced to sleep early if he wished to obtain the proper amount of rest for his young body. This meant that he was forced to sleep instead, enjoying the night with only the moon and stars to guide his path. However, this did give Naruto some time to perform his studies with a refreshed mind. Going to the hidden wall panel and performing the same ritual as last night with the exception of graving the black-colored scroll and leaving the other 2. After unsealing an unnamed black book from the scroll, did Naruto return it and the rest of his valuable items away in their respective compartments. Naruto would continue to read until his internal clock told him that it was about the time that breakfast was served. After replacing his book back into the hidden scroll, and return his room to its original appearance, did Naruto leave his room. After closing his door, Naruto inserted the small lead fragment along with the small piece of paper. Meanwhile he was doing this, Naruto also etched a small amount of chakra into the door of his room. Only after he was done ensuring that he would be able to identify anyone who came into his room did he proceed to glide down the wooden staircase. As he was walking down the stairs, Naruto overheard 2 loud cries of "Kachan!" Food. Naruto didn't even let thoughts of who might be making such noises into his mind. The only thing he was concentrating on was getting proper nutrition for his body. It was the primary reason why Menma and Naomi were still small for their ages. It's because they always eat the most unhealthy food at the table every time this food is served, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Ramen, smelling the very food that was stunting Menma's and Naomi's growth. Luckily for him, there was more food than just ramen at the table, such as eggs, bacon, and few bowls of fruit. What was that? Kushina asked her children in a too sweet tone with several strands of her red hair flying like tails behind her back. Minato, obviously seeing his pissed wife, decided to just continue reading his paper and ignore anything potentially life-threatening that was about to happen in the next few seconds. As long as he didn't have to get hit by that frying pan, everything was legal and acceptable in his mind. As Naruto sat down, he heard the 2 fearful squeaks of nothing. As both Menma and Naomi tried hiding deeper into their respective chairs in order to avoid the wrath of an angry mother. "That's what I thought," Kushina replied with a huff. She then began serving the 2 ramen, already knowing that it was their favorite dish to eat. Only after serving the youngest 2 their daily breakfast ramen did the rest of the table eat the prepared food that was already laid out. As per usual, Minato and Kushina discussed non-important topics at the table along with talking with Menma and Naomi about what they would like to do for the day. It was at this point that Naruto removed any thought of what they were peeking about from his mind. The only thing that he was currently focused on was getting the nutrients that his body required. His body deserved to grow properly, no matter what any one person or thing may have to say. After finishing his meal, Naruto quietly got up and placed his used dishes inside the sink and proceeded to clean them. Even though Naruto put no real thought or attention in what his family were speaking of, his awareness to his surroundings still allowed him to discern some key words such as training, visiting clans, and work. It led him to the conclusion that Minato was about to head off to finish more paperwork at the office, and Kushina and the younger siblings were going to visit the clans in the familiar areas. After visiting their friends, Kushina was going to force the 2 to train for a good while. "I can't wait to go visit Neji and Hinata-chan again." Menma spoke in his usual loud voice. "HMMPH, me neither to Bane." Naomi added on to her brother's statement along with the verbal tic that was inherited from her mother. "Remember, we're only going to spend a couple of hours there. After we're done we're going to continue your training," Kushina told her prankster kids. Hi. was the simultaneous response to her order. A side effect of becoming a Jinchuriki is that the Baiju'u's chakra is constantly siphoned and mixed with their host's own chakra supply. This mixture causes an extending of the host's chakra coils, thus leading to a more advanced chakra system. Now this in itself is not a bad thing for either the Jinchuriki or the village it serves. This condition will however lead to poor chakra control unless properly dealt with before the chakra expands past the child's comprehension of their own energy. Now even though poor chakra control is an issue, it is not the primary concern for a Jinchuriki. What is truly unsettling is that due to the constant mix of the host's chakra and the Baiju'u's, it would be possible for the Baiju'u's chakra to overpower and take control of its jailer. And so at the early ages of 4 and 5 respectively, Minato and Kushina decided to teach their children how to unlock their chakra. Flashback. Location: Hokage's private training grounds. A bit of disappointment filled Kushina as the sun continued to rise and more time continued to pass. Today was the day that they agreed upon to teach their 3 children how to unlock their chakra. However, it appeared that he wouldn't be able to avoid getting out of the office today. He said if that should happen then she should teach their children how to unlock their chakra by herself. In truth, it wasn't that surprising that he was still at his office working. A lot has happened during these past couple of years since the Kyuubi attack that increased Minato's workload. Immediately following the Kyuubi's attack, there were certain thoughts that were constantly filling the minds of Konoha's head council. Amongst the shinobi, there was rampant suspicion of one of the other villages attacking Konoha meanwhile she was weakened. It consistently gnawed upon the thoughts in the back of their minds. This fear led to thoughts like, what are we going to do if another village attacks? How can we defend ourselves? How badly was shinobi military force weakened by? What are we going to do next? How badly was Konoha's income affected? How will this incident affect Konoha's political standing in comparison to the other villages in the world? So many questions that were driven by fear that some people began to even lose their common sense. However, this incident didn't just affect the shinobi population, it also caused changes in the civilian one. Civilians began to worry whether the shinobi population could properly protect them. Some civilians lost major income and supplies and some even entire business, and driven mad with fear caused more chaos. Others began thinking whether they should stay in Konoha or attempt to move into a different village for better protection. The effects from the Kyuubi attack are still being felt 4 years into the future to the present. Being the Hokage, it meant that Minato had to focus more of his attention on the village than his family. But to Minato it wasn't as simple as him loving the village more than his family, it was that to him the village was his family. But that also meant that he sometimes had to give up special moments with his family that he would never be able to get back. Alright. Your father wanted to be here for your first lesson in unlocking your chakra, but something came up and wasn't able to come. So I'll be the one to give you your first lesson in unlocking your chakra. Kushina told her children as they were currently in a nearby training field. Yes. Woo. I'm going to be the best ninja ever. Tbo, Menma yelled at the top of his lungs. No. I am. Bane. That was Naomi giving her obvious counter to her brother's goal. I am. No. I am. Naruto just looked upon the two with an unamused glint within his midnight blue fox eyes. He found their banter to be annoying. He then turned his head and saw that Kushina was finding amusement in their childish argument. She, however, soon grew annoyed that neither of them were paying attention to her. 2 brutal smacks were heard echoing throughout the training ground as both Menma and Naomi were holding their heads where Kushina hit them with a book. Now as I was saying, gazing at a blushing Menma and Naomi, in order to unlock your chakra you first need to place your hands in a ram seal and concentrate within you. From there it will change for each person. For some people they feel a pull, for others they feel like something was finally released. As for finding it, you have to do it on your own. But know that once you find it you will know that it is your chakra. The 3 children nodded their heads and Kushina showed them how to perform the ram hand seal. Naruto noticed that Kushina was constantly gazing at both Menma and Naomi. He concluded that this was because of their abnormally large chakra reserves that were bolstered by the Kyuubi. This meant that there was a very real possibility of the Kyuubi's chakra leaking out when the twins unlocked their own. Even at a young age, Naruto was able to understand things around him better than the others his age. Since he knew that the information about who became the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi was passed to the village council, this information was eventually leaked down into the common everyday citizens of Konoha. This was one of the major differences in how himself and the siblings grew up. It was also the reason why Kushina was keeping such a close eye on the two. The Kyuubi's chakra was very distinctive and an everyday man would have no problem feeling the bloodlust that existed within its chakra. So if the Kyuubi's chakra was leaked, and a citizen was unlucky enough to feel it, then it would be the cause of unnecessary panic. It was also because of this better understanding that Naruto knew that the village disliked, no hated him. Naruto knew that the villagers saw Menma and Naomi as their prince and princess of Konoha and him the demon lurking in the darkness. Since he was the one sealed with the soul of the Kyuubi, he knew that they must have thought that he was possessed or at the very least something along those lines. But the thing was that even though Naruto understood why they hated and feared him, he wouldn't know, he couldn't, bring himself to forgive them for their actions. It's one of the reasons why he was distancing himself from his parents and his siblings. As Hokage, Minato must have had some sense of what was happening to him whenever he went into the village on his own. The cold glares, the whispers, the constant feeling of coldness. Every month or two after he turned 5, there was a beating. It was only after his first beating that he was able to truly see just the amount of hatred this village had for him, as if his entire existence was a mistake. After a while of feeling this coldness, he noticed something else. On the rare occasions that he received or gave a hug to his parents or his siblings, he felt a similar feeling of coldness from them. It wasn't to the same degree as the villagers, but it was more like, there was something else that clouded their love for him, some feeling of bitterness or sadness that they tried to lock within themselves. As he moved to sit under a tree, he noticed the saddened and guilt-riddled glance that Kushina threw his way. That was another thing that made him cautious of his parents. That wasn't a normal parent's loving glance that one showered their children with, but one that showed of their sadness and pain. Naruto believed that it was the reason behind this glance, that feeling of coldness, that caused these negative emotions whenever he was near. Kushina noticed that Naruto was moving away from his younger siblings. It saddened her and Minato to see their eldest child distance himself from us. They tried to include Naruto into various family matters, visiting work, family picnics, visiting family friends to play with their children, but nothing worked. In fact, it only made Naruto even colder to everyone else. Naruto was always different from others around his age. Whenever he or his siblings visited the neighboring clan compounds, she noticed how he would always distance himself from the other children and continued doing whatever it was that he did, probably reading. When she once asked why he didn't want to play with the rest of the children, she thought it might have been because he was shy to make new friends or he didn't know how to play with them. His reply honestly shocked her. He replied by saying that what the others were doing were too boring for him to even pay attention to. After replying, he just went back to reading his book that he got from the family library. Even amongst his siblings, he would rather be alone than be with them. About a half an hour passed by with each of them trying to unlock their chakra. During this time, there were multiple complaints by both Manma and Naomi about not being able to do it. Which in fact is quite normal. Chakra is not supposed to be unlocked with ease. If it could, then all civilians would do it. And as usual, Naruto was his normal quiet self, not showing any frustration or emotion on his stoic face. All of a sudden, chakra rippled out from Naruto. Kushina had a look of surprise on her face from not only Naruto unlocking his chakra so soon but also because of the feel of the chakra. The chakra that she felt from Naruto wasn't a happy vibrant chakra like other children. No, this chakra was more ominous, cold, unfriendly. It showed exactly what she was seeing. A cold mature child. Seeing this made her well up in guilt over You unlocked your chakra first, you team. Menma screeches at his older brother while pointing his index finger at him. Naruto just looked at him with his continued stoic face, showing that he doesn't really care what Menma thinks about him at all. Even after Menma cursed at him, Naruto just brushed him off as simple as a fly. Like any younger brother to his older brother, Menma viewed his perfect older brother as his goal to beat. It was his goal to beat his older brother in being a ninja. Whenever Menma looked at Naruto, he always felt as if he was just looking at his shadow, never really being able to truly compare to him. He hated the feeling of being weaker than his brother. It's one of the reasons why he loves to going into the village. Everyone realized that he was the stronger one. Grrr. Say something, Temouch. Menma screamed to the heavens as his mother once again hit him over the head. Now what did I tell you about cursing? Kushina asked in her overly sweet voice that depicted doom for young Menma. Especially when he saw her beautiful red hair flying behind her back into 9 different strands. Sorry, KK-ka-chan. I'll try and not to do it anymore. Menma muttered in a voice that made Naruto think whipped with a sweat drop. Good. No son of mine is going to start cursing like some filthy sailor. Good job, Naruto-kun. Keep this up and you'll be a strong ninja in no time. Kushina told Naruto with a pointed smile. Naruto narrowed his midnight blue fox eyes at the smile as Kasan threw him. He could see that even though it was similar to the vibrant smiles that she gave to his siblings whenever they did something that she thought was great, he could still see that there were traces of sadness and bitterness hidden beneath that smile. He hated that smile, the one that kept on making him feel cold inside. Not like the one she gave to Menma and Naomi. It always felt fake. Even his Tosan gave him those same smiles. Eventually he just nodded at Kushina, showing his acceptance of her words. He still kept his stoic and calm attitude all through the interaction as to not raise suspicion that he knew something that he shouldn't. It was quite obvious that both of his parents thought that he wouldn't notice the pain that they attempted to cover up whenever they smile at him. They must have thought that he was too young to understand more ways about the world. But what they didn't know was that he knew much more about the world than they thought he did. "Eni-chan, Dodo, you think that you could give me any tips that could help unlock my chakra?" Naomi spoke to her eldest brother with a timid tone. To Naomi, Naruto was really intimidating. He might have been young, but to her, he was more intimidating than any adult. It wasn't that he was taller or stronger, but it felt like that because he was so different from the rest of the family, or anyone she's met really. Even the adult ninja that have that calm stoic face at least crack a small smile when they see her or her brother. But her Ni-chan, whenever she tried talking to him, it's either that the conversation was not really, as he puts it, interesting enough. Like when they want to play ninja with the rest of their friends from various clans. And when it is interesting enough, then he would just go back to doing whatever it was after he's done. To Naomi, she would rather just ignore her elder brother as much as possible so she doesn't have to see those scary eyes. Naruto turned his head and stared at her with a piercing glare that made her feel as if she were being judged, would be the best way to put it. Concentrate. Don't let your mind wander too much. Try to block out outside distractions and focus only on the way your body moves. Thank you, Ni-chan. Naruto nods his head in acknowledgement. PFFF, yeah, thanks a lot Ni-san. Menma quickly changed his words the moment that he saw his mother's hairs start to go up. Dear Kemi. His Ka-chan is scary. But even if she is scary, shivers, she's still a great Ka-chan that takes care of the three of them and To-chan. Kushina smiled at the interactions between her children. She was especially amused when Menma changed what he was about to say so that he wouldn't get into trouble. Seeing that Menma was still looking at her fearfully, she decided to give him a pointed glance. Alright, that's enough talking for now. Now since Naruto-kun has unlocked his chakra, I will show you guys an exercise that will help you better control your chakra. Having chakra is just as important as being able to control it, or else you won't be able to use it. I'll demonstrate the exercise so that Naruto-kun can work on it. Meanwhile you two continue to work on unlocking your chakra, Kushina tells them in a lecturing tone. Receiving 2 high and a silent nod, she performed the basic chakra control exercise. Here are 2 main exercises that Jonan should know. The first is either levitating or sticking a leaf to your body. By levitating it, you will learn how you can push chakra through different points of your body. While sticking the leaf to your body forces you to get used to the different properties of chakra. In this case its ability to stick to different things. The next exercise would be the tree walking exercise. Instead of climbing a tree with your hands and feet, you can only climb the tree with your feet. Seeing 2 looks that said she was beginning to go crazy and a completely stoic look, Kushina decided to elaborate. You stick to the tree by channeling your chakra into the bottom of your feet. This exercise is mainly about control. In order to climb the tree you need to have an exact amount of chakra so that you will stick to the tree. If you push in too much chakra then you will be blasted off, and if you place too little then you'll slip and fall. This is especially difficult because the feet are some, if not the, hardest place to channel chakra in the body. Deciding that a proper demonstration was in order, Kushina walked over to a tree and began to walk up it as easy as if she were walking on the ground. Looking down she could see the odd expressions on Menma and Naomi's faces, which made her incredibly amused. She also saw the ever-stoic look on Naruto's face, that made it seem as if he wasn't interested in the least and was only doing this to humor her. For some reason this stoic look really began to irk her. Not letting Naruto's stoic face affect her, she jumped down from the branch that she was on to get to her children. Alright, now you two go back and start working on unlocking your chakra. As for you Naruto-kun, you should start working on your chakra control. You guys should have a higher level of chakra than anyone your age. Which means that you will have a harder time controlling it. Hi. And the 2 fraternal twins continue trying to unlock their chakra. Seeing that 2 of her children were working on unlocking their chakra, she turned her head to view the third and saw him walking away to a more isolated part of the training grounds. Naruto. Seeing him stop she caught up to him and asked, "Where are you going?" With a befuddled look on her face. Naruto nodded his head to his younger siblings and simply said, "Distracting." In his quiet voice, Kushina slowly nodded her head at the answer that Naruto gave. Does he mean that he was distracting them or that we were the ones that were distracting to him? Kushina thought this with more pain filling up her already scarred heart. End of flashback. After Naruto was done cleaning his dishes, he gathered his things and started walking out the door, but stopped when he heard someone talking to him. Naruto-kun, Don't you want to visit your friends at the Hyuga clan? Kushina asked in a slightly worried but hopeful tone. Naruto responded with a simple shake of his head and continued walking forward. Kushina seeing Naruto walk out the door and felt the pain in her heart flare up. Naruto-kun keeps on distancing himself more and more from the rest of us, why Naruto-kun? The red-headed mother thought of her child. Come on Ka-chan. Let's get going. I want to go see Neji and Hinata-chan. Yeah, come on Ka-chan. Kushina smiled to her younger children. Some of the pain fading to care for her other children and agreed to go. In a training ground. After leaving his family, Naruto decided to continue his training. From his reading, he knew that any good shinobi should be used to handling and using kunai and shuriken. Thus, Naruto decided to take the initiative and start practicing with them. This found him practicing in a remote training ground, trying to improve his usage of the basic arts. I see that you're still working as hard as ever. A calm and familiar voice resounded throughout the training grounds. Naruto stopped his training and turned around to view the newcomer, smiling softly when he saw who was there. Nissan. Shisui Uchiha. To many within the Uchiha clan and village, he was considered a genius on par with Itachi Uchiha. To those outside the village walls, he is called Sunshine no Shisui. He earned this moniker due to his performance with the Sunshine no Jutsu. It is said that he was so skilled in using the jutsu that he could drive people mad with it. To Naruto Namikaze, he called Shisui with a different title Nissan. Looking away from the shuriken and kunai that riddled a tree he was using as target practice to fully face the person that saved him from going insane in his own mind. As Naruto turned to face his elder brother, he takes in his appearance. Shisui wore the basic Uchiha clothes that consists of dark, nearly black shirt and pants. His pants were secured around his ankles with the use of medical tape. The medical tape stopped when it got to his black sandals. Around his torso was a sheath for his tanto that was currently secured with the hilt reaching above his right shoulder. The shirt itself is a high-collared shirt that did well in concealing his neck. Shisui has short, unkempt, dark-colored hair along with a relatively broad nose and defined eyelashes, and his coal-black eyes. He also has a bag that was being held by his right hand. After returning to the village from a mission with his team, Shisui first decided to stop by the Uchiha compound to get himself settled into his home. The mission itself was a B-rank mission to guard some pompous noble. Again, the noble demanded that he be escorted by one of Konoha's finest clans, and he was just lucky enough to be chosen. Again, realizing that it was still morning and he was only able to eat a quick breakfast on the way here, Shisui decided that he should get something to eat for an early lunch. Quickly leaving his house so that he could fill the pit that he called his stomach. Easily leaving the Uchiha compound that was located on the outskirts of Konoha. As Shisui walked down the main road of Konoha, seeing the happy smiles of a group of children placed a small genuine smile on his face. The smile was soon turned into a stoic mask after seeing that some of the citizens were giving him untrusting glances. Seeing the village's fear of the Kyuubi attack slowly manifest itself in the form of suspicion. As his train of thought was thinking of the village's fear, it brought up an image of a small 6-year-old child. The child had pale skin with night black hair. He had a delicate jaw that was slightly stronger than Kushina-sama's, but the thing that really stood out to him along with the rest of the village was the child's slitted midnight blue eyes that had an uncanny similarity to a fox, something that was not taken well by the rest of the village. He remembered the first time that he had seen the young boy. It was a couple of months after he turned 5. Flashback. It was night time, nearing about midnight. It was around this time that one Shisui Uchiha discreetly left the Uchiha compound. If one were to see him now, they would immediately ask what possible reason could Shisui Uchiha have for leaving his home this late at night. Some would think that perhaps he has a girlfriend and was meeting with her, others would think that he was a spy, stupid people. Or very smart, while the truth was that he was out this late at night to train. Now the obvious question would be, why train at night and not during the day? The answer to that question is because the whole point of this specific training is to train at night. During nighttime, your visibility is cut virtually in half, if not more depending on where you are and whether the moon is out or not. During nighttime the temperature begins to decrease. It was also the time that many of the more dangerous predators would come out. This specific training was made so that shinobi could better adapt themselves to the night in case it was required to complete a mission. You can also think of it another way. If you have to fight an enemy shinobi at night and you can't see that well and they can, then your chances of survival have just been cut. Shisui, being the shinobi he is, decided that it would be best to train like this sometimes to better adjust to the dark. After all, shinobi are meant to live and die in the shadows, in the darkness of the world. Deciding that since tonight had a fine crescent moon in the sky along with a number of clouds to cut some visibility, that tonight would be a good night to train. It was shortly after he entered the forest that he heard something. At first he thought nothing of it and shrugged it off, but in order to satisfy the healthy paranoia that any shinobi worth his chakra should have, he decided to give a quick check, silently pushing off the tree branch that he was using as a jumping point. He easily transcended the group of bushes that was blocking his view. It was only after making a silent landing did he see a figure sitting down. Seeing the figure immediately awakened the shinobi within him and made him go on guard. After taking a bit of a closer look, Shisui soon realized that the figure was in fact a child with his knees to his chest, and after a second he could also hear soft sniffles coming from the child along with small shakes of his body. Taking small steps so that he doesn't accidentally startle the child, once he reaches a distance that he found comfortable, he asked in a soft tone and voice, "Hey, kid, what are you doing out here? It's dangerous to be here, especially at night." The moment that Shisui spoke, the child stopped shaking and any sound that came from him was immediately stopped. It felt as if it wasn't only the child that was silent but also his surroundings. The only thing that even moved would be wind and the clouds that were hanging high in the sky. Eventually the clouds parted enough so that the sliver of moonlight that came from the crescent moon was able to break through the surrounding trees. When it did, Shisui quickly noticed the ground and some small blood stains that were on it. The directions that the blood stains were pointing to the child that was unusually silent. After seeing the blood stains, a sense worry filled Shisui. A child was out here in the middle of the forest for Kami knows how long with an injury. Taking a few steps forward to be closer the child, which he assumed was a boy. He noticed that the boy had messy spiked night-colored hair along with a simple black shirt and pants with shinobi sandals. This gave the obvious deduction that the child boy was training to be a shinobi. Shisui regained his worry quickly when he noticed blood on the child's shirt. "Hey kid. Are you alright?" The child, instead of answering, simply slowly turned his head in his direction. Seeing his face more clearly than before thanks to the moonlight, Shisui noticed that the child had a delicate jaw and features. But what was truly shocking to Shisui was when a twin pair of midnight blue fox eyes reflecting the moon's light were looking into his own pair of charcoal. It was with the awakening of these slitted night-like orbs that made Shisui realize who this was. The son of the current Hokage, Minato Namikaze, Naruto Namikaze, the eldest of 3 siblings. It was along with this realization that Shisui figured out what happened to him. Shisui, like any other who lived within the village, was told what happened. 4 years ago on October 10 the Yondaime Hokage split the Kyuubi into 3 entities and sealed each one into each of his children with the help of his wife. While Menmai and Naomi were sealed with the Kyuubi's Yang and Yin chakra respectively, Naruto was sealed with the soul. This led to the people of Konoha seeing Menmai and Naomi as heroes who stole the chakra from the Kyuubi, while Naruto was the noble elder son who sacrificed his soul to the Kyuubi to protect his siblings. It is said that every day that passes by, the Kyuubi continues to devour more and more of the boy's soul, and one day, there won't be a Naruto left. But what shocked Shisui more than the identity of said child was what he saw in said child's eyes: hatred. Not a childish anger of when something doesn't goes their way or when they get hurt and they blame someone. Not something as simplistic and weak as that. No, what Shisui saw was pure hatred. The hatred that was in Naruto's eyes was something that he saw only a few times. The last time he did was when he saw one of his cousins holding in his arms the women that he loved. He saw it all: the hatred for Iwa Nin that killed his love, the hatred for her comrades that weren't able to protect her, hatred for himself for not being there, and most of all, hatred for the world. The two just stood there for a staring at each other as the wind continued blowing the leaves around them. Shisui watched as the hatred within Naruto's eyes began to recede. If he had to describe what he saw, it would be that the burning hatred that was so clearly displayed in Naruto's eyes began to, for lack of better words, freeze, and created a darker coating to the already midnight-like eyes. Looking at Naruto's face felt like he was looking at winter's night. "Who are you?" was the almost silent question that was directed towards Shisui from the cold child. "My name is Shisui Uchiha." Shisui tried to say something more, but all that he could do was open and close his mouth as the words were lost in his mind. After all, the answer to his question was already given when he knew the boy was. Shisui saw those cold blue orbs narrow their slitted pupil as he gave his last name. It took him a moment to realize why. After all, the current disagreement between the village and the Uchiha clan is because some believe that it was the Uchiha that controlled the Kyuubi into attacking the village. Naruto, though young, must be able to see the difference in treatment between a regular villager and an Uchiha. "What are you doing here?" again came the almost silent question. The only reason why he even heard it was because the wind was able to carry his voice to him. "I was planning on some night training," Shisui told the young child in a calm tone, his voice clearly going against what he was truly feeling. For Shisui, it felt like an eternity until Naruto again spoke. Even though it must have only been at least a couple of minutes, to him it felt like hours. "You're different," Naruto told him in his whisper-like voice. Came the normal Uchiha reply, but instead a stoic face it showed one of slight confusion. Different from what? Was what was going through the Uchiha's head. Your eyes, when you look at me, they don't feel angry or cold. Was the reply that Naruto gave to the older shinobi. He could understand what Naruto was saying. That he looked kinder than those in the village. It was actually a bit odd. If not a bit amusing. After all, he is a shinobi, he did not do nice things. Even though I know that you know what is sealed in me, I can tell that you just don't seem to care about that. Many do. Impressively, he was right, Shisui really didn't care about that stuff. After all, he knew what it felt like to be given something that you, or anyone, shouldn't have. It was this understanding that made him see Naruto as the boy he is instead of the beast everyone else saw. He was sure that there were others that had at least a similar perspective as him, however, many of them could possibly hate him out of fear. Sighing silently at Naruto's statement, "Yeah, I don't really care about all that stuff," replied Shisui, while slightly turning his head to the side and moving his eyes to the side to avoid eye contact. "Why?" came the calm question. When Shisui looked back at Naruto, he was surprised to see an almost pleading look in his eyes. Seeing this look on Naruto's slightly tear-stained cheek got rid of any possible hesitation that Shisui might have had. It's because I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be given something that you've never wanted, something that comes at price that should never be paid," was Shisui's response to Naruto's inquiry, turning his head to look at the beautiful star-filled sky. As he was giving the response, he couldn't help but think of the power that his cursed eyes brought. Yes, the Mangekyo Sharingan was indeed a useful ability, but it came at such an awful price, a price that has still haunted him till this day. Forever, would his sight be clouded by blood. "My name is Naruto," came the now familiar quiet voice. Shisui, turning to look away from the night sky to look at the young boy, saw that Naruto had a small turn at the edge of his lips. Immediately understanding that Naruto was, in his own way, extends a hand of not friendship but more like trust. Shisui decided that he would reciprocate the boy's action. "Nice to meet you, Naruto. My name is Shisui," replied the elder of the two with a smile on his face. Flashback end. It had only been little less than a year since he had met Naruto, and one thing was certain. He cared for Naruto. He truly saw the black-haired child as family, as his Itoto. It honestly took him by surprise at the time. When he decided to become friends with Naruto, he thought that he could perhaps take away some of the hatred that slept in his heart. Shisui actually soon found the reason why he thought of Naruto as his Itoto and why Naruto thought of him as his Aniki. It took a bit of time, but he found the reason. It was because in a way, they were both alone. After the deaths of Shisui's parents, he felt alone. Yes, the Uchiha clan helped him as did the village and all the people in both. He even considered Itachi as his brother, but it was different with Naruto. With Itachi, he considered Itachi to be his brother as well, but, for Itachi, he had his parents and his Itoto, Sasuke, to take care of. He still considered Itachi his brother, always, but with Naruto, the difference was that, he was as alone as Shisui, perhaps even more. No, definitely more. And it was because of this that Shisui cared for Naruto as his Itoto. To Naruto, Shisui was his family, not just a friend, but his Aniki. In a similar way, Shisui cared for Naruto because he could understand him. After a good look in the sky to see the position of the sun to determine the time of day, he guessed that his Itoto was at the training ground. His Itoto took training seriously, almost to the point that Shisui thought that it was a religion to him. When Shisui questioned him about it, Naruto responded with an interesting question. Is it right to be strong? Is it wrong to be weak? For all of his experience, Shisui didn't have a true answer. There will always be weak people and strong people in the world. But is it right to be one while the other is wrong? All people are born weak and some stay weak while others grow strong. But is one really better than the other? If being strong truly is right, then doesn't that mean that the weak shouldn't be alive, that they shouldn't exist? But a world like that, it's just. It's sad. Came Naruto's quiet response, somehow completing his own train of thought. The world that we live in, really is a sad world. Where the strong rule the weak, and that is why I will become strong, so that I may be free. Naruto told his Oni-san with a small smile on his face. To be free. Were Shisui's thoughts back then and now. Realizing that it would soon be lunch and that his Itoto would still be training unless he got really hungry or if he personally stopped him. With that in mind, Shisui continued on his quest to get some food and eat with Naruto. After getting nicely cooked beef from an Akimichi's shop, Shisui first went to visit an isolated training ground that he would probably find Naruto at. The training ground was a fair distance away from the Yondaime's house. As expected, when Shisui arrived, Naruto was working hard practicing his kunai and shuriken usage. When Shisui first asked what Naruto first wanted to learn, he said that he wanted to learn things that were useful. In Shisui's mind, Naruto's response led him to two different trains of thought. The first was thinking that came to his mind was that if Naruto wanted to learn something useful, then he would be sure to thoroughly teach him the basics of what a true shinobi should know. This meant that he had to teach Naruto near-perfect usage of the basic weapons of a shinobi, along with the fundamental ideas behind the usage of any category of jutsu that he could think of. After all, it's easier to do something if you understood it than trying to do something that you had limited knowledge of. The second thought that ran through Shisui's mind was how unlike Naruto was to the rest of the children in his age group. From the beginning Shisui knew that Naruto was different from the rest. At the time he thought that it was mainly because of how alone Naruto was most of the time, but after spending some time with him, Shisui quickly realized that that wasn't the case. Naruto was just different from the rest of his peers. Shisui didn't really know how or why, but all that Shisui knew was that Naruto was. Naruto's answer to his previous question only verified that further. Most children his age would jump up and down screaming to be taught cool jutsu. I see that you're still working as hard as ever. Naruto, stopping with his kunai and shuriken practice, turned around at a controlled rate, before quirking his lips into what can barely be considered a smile and said, "Nissan. Hey, I just got back from my escort mission, and since I was only able to get a quick breakfast, I decided to get something else to eat, and knowing you, I know that you wouldn't eat anything until you get really hungry or I tell you to eat. So I decided to some early lunch." Shisui easily finished with an easy-looking smile on his face. "HNN." came the reply from his little brother. The small smile from earlier easily melting into a face of pure stoicism. Honestly, it was like his little brother was an Uchiha. Not even a second passed by before Naruto started walking over to a spot near the small river that passed through the training grounds. The training grounds themselves consisted of a wide clearing with various stones. The edge of the clearing was surrounded by a forest of trees. There is a small river streaming down the center of the training grounds. To Shisui, it was a good standard training ground. The only reason why nobody really used it was because it was quite off the beaten path. Don't get him wrong, many, if not all of the training grounds were designed to keep any training that goes on there secret. It's just that this one was more out of the way than even those, and this caused less people to know about it. Thus it became a bit more hidden than rest. Seeing Naruto already sitting next to the river made him bring the food over. It was in all honesty a quiet lunch. Naruto was never much of a talker. As for himself, he wanted to simply enjoy the peace that currently surrounded him. As a shinobi, Shisui was forced to do many things. Some of these things could be considered good, but they could also be considered bad, very bad. It was honestly all in the opinion of who you asked. If you asked Shisui himself, he would tell you that he may have done some bad things. However, he was not a bad person. Not to say that he is a good person, but he isn't a bad person. It was because of these bad things that he was forced to perform and witness that he was able to truly appreciate the peace that currently revolved around him and his little brother. Shisui truly did love this feeling. The feeling of utter calmness and peace that was around him. Simply listening to the wind as leaves float upon it through a multiple of patterns. The sound of the water smoothly flowing down the creek with an occasional fish jumping out. Knowing that the person he cared for most was sitting next to him and was safe. It was this peace, this calmness that he was trying so hard to protect. It was the entire reason why he became a ninja. His reason to being a ninja may not have started out with this exact reason, but it was pretty close to it. The reason why he first decided to become a ninja was when he saw how happy Sasuke was just being with Itachi. The happiness that he saw on Sasuke's face and in Itachi's eyes were also found whenever he saw the happy smiles of all the villagers in the village living a happy, peaceful life. To him, it was something worth fighting for. This is what he realized when he was younger, and it was what continued to fuel him as he got older. These thoughts of peace eventually led to something that was threatening this peace that he wanted to protect, his own family. In the beginning of Konoha, the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan eventually stopped their bloody warfare and decided to make a truce and finally build a place where they could protect their future. That was the beginning of Konoha. Other clans came together and helped form the village, and eventually the leader of the Senju clan, Hashirama Senju, was appointed as the Shodaime Hokage. However, it was when the Shodaime died and the title of Nadaime was passed on to his younger brother Tobirama Senju that things began to change for the Uchiha clan. Tobirama Senju had a distinct distaste for the Uchiha clan. He was the one who first set up the military police which would help police the village and protect it. The thing is though that this came at the cost of the political power that the Uchiha once had diminishing. Even though the Uchiha were disgruntled by this, they still kept on pressing forward because a large portion of them still remembered what it was like during the clan wars. However, Eventually the Kyuubi attacked. This led to some people blaming the Uchiha for controlling the beast and attacking the village. After all, Madara was able to control the Kyuubi, so why wouldn't another Uchiha be able to? This leads to where they are now, with Konoha being distrustful towards the Uchiha clan and the Uchiha clan feeling slighted for taking the blame for something that they didn't do. Upon finishing these thoughts, Shisui quickly realized that Naruto had already finished and was just watching the river flow by. Knowing that he was waiting for him, Shisui quickly finished the rest of the barbecue. After finishing, he got up and took a seat next to his little brother to watch the water stream by along with the fish that live within, going over the training that he was planning on giving Naruto in his head. After a minute or two of getting his thoughts organized, he decided to tell his little brother the schedule for the rest of the day. "You'll be joining the Ninja Academy next year," Shisui stated in a normal tone of voice. Naruto did nothing more than nod his head while still staring at the fish swimming by. His focus was primarily on the salmon that were swimming upstream. It was an enjoyable thought to him, going against the current of the world. Creating your own path, and even though the rest of the world fought against you, you still continued fighting. It was a happy thought for him that always resonated with something inside of him. "How do you feel about it?" came the question from his older brother. How did he feel about going to the Ninja Academy? For many parents, they found that having their children entering the academy was a thing to be proud about. Some of the smarter parents were proud but had just the same amount of fear for their children. After all, they are being trained for the military of the village, or it would be better worded for the protection of village, even at the cost of their lives. He knew that other parents were happy because they could possibly use their children as a way to be connected to other families that had more power, be it because of prestige through strength, history, wealth, or politics. Many of the children themselves saw this as a way to become a hero. They listened to the bedtime stories of their parents about how heroic and powerful and wonderful the Hokages of the village were, that they became completely fixed on becoming like them. So when they think of the academy, they think of a way to become a hero that can be just as great, if not greater, than any of the Hokages or any well-known shinobi. For Naruto, he could sum up his thoughts of the Ninja Academy in one pretty little word: annoying. He told his sibling in his normal monotone voice. Hearing the sigh that came from Shisui's lips, "I realized that the academy would probably be more bothersome to you than anything else, but maybe it could be good for you. You know, interacting with others your age." Shisui realized quite well that the academy was more of a hindrance than anything to his little brother. In Shisui's mind, he thought of it like this: himself, Itachi, and many other great shinobis like the Sandaime were made into great if not near perfect shinobis. Naruto was born as a shinobi. For someone who was 6 years old, Naruto was scary good at being a ninja. When Shisui first started teaching Naruto about being a ninja, he decided to start off with something basic, like kunai and shuriken throwing. It amazed him when less than a week passed and he was throwing perfect kunai and shuriken. Now it wasn't just being able to throw perfect shuriken and kunai that got him amazed. No, he somewhat expected that. It was when he saw how quickly Naruto developed a reflex for it. He didn't need to consciously think to make them hit his mark. In less than a second he could analyze any given situation and be able to react accordingly with the kunai and shuriken. Now to others, they would see a ninja in training and think nothing more of it. An experienced ninja could easily see the true difference between Naruto and some academy brat or even a green genin. Even though a genin could fire off kunai and shuriken at a good pace and be able to hit their marks, it would take years before they could match what Naruto was doing. Being able to change strength and direction to be able to match the given conditions of the environment and land perfect marks each time was not something any normal genin could accomplish. In fact, only seasoned jonin would be able to reach that level of ability. The thing is though that it isn't really an ability. If Shisui had to describe it, he would say that it was more along the lines of instinct. The jonins hone their instincts after years of training and nearly dying countless times on a multitude of missions, but not just with this but other areas of being a ninja. And this is why Shisui says that Naruto was born to be a ninja. Because he was born with that ingrained instinct that could match any seasoned jonin. And he knew that it was only going to get stronger over time. However, the reason why he wants his little brother to go to the Ninja Academy is to have him interact with other children his age. Not to say that he thought of Naruto as a child, no. Naruto was forced to grow up to any number of different things that Shisui could no longer classify his brother as a child. But that didn't mean that he wanted his brother to continue living on without feeling a part of his childhood. Shisui's hope is that the Ninja Academy could possibly give him a piece of his lost childhood. The thing was though that he didn't truly believe that that had a real possibility of happening, but he was going to hope and pray that his brother could find some small happiness in the academy. Interacting, Naruto stated to his brother. Not questioned, but stated. It was through this word alone that Naruto understood what his Ni-san truly wanted. He wanted him to connect with others his age. He was also able to read underneath this first goal into what Shisui truly wanted. He wanted him to regain a piece of his childhood. He was able to come to this conclusion only because how well he knew Shisui. In his core, Shisui is and always will be a pacifist. He disliked fighting, or at least fighting without a proper reason. But it was this dislike of fighting that led to Shisui utterly despising how the elemental nations use children to fight their wars. Children who don't even begin to understand the meaning to love or to even live. With his current age, Shisui felt sad at how non-existent his childhood was. So Shisui wanted him to go to the academy in order to try to gain some form of childhood. It was, after all, the only reason why he even decided to join the academy. This was something Shisui truly wanted for him because he wanted him happy. That was the only motivating factor behind agreeing with his brother. Even though he loved his brother, he wasn't scared nor timid enough to not speak his mind. But his brother wanted this for him because he cared, and that was why he didn't tell him no, even though he thought of the academy as nothing more than a complete waste of his time. "I promise nothing," Naruto told Shisui, knowing that Shisui would take that because that was the best he was going to get. Hearing another sigh exit from his brother, "Thank you," Shisui told him in a caring voice that told him that his trust was not misplaced. "Now, we should get on to the training for today." The moment Naruto heard this, a glint appeared in his eyes that vanished into the night-like orb just as quickly as it appeared. Rebirth. Blood. The red liquid of life. Without it, one will die. It looks so similar to water yet so different at the same time. It's funny, but in a way you can say that blood is in fact water that is tainted. Tainted with the curse that is known as humanity. Humans place such value and worth into this simple red liquid. Even though when any human is cut, the blood that is shed is red, humans still believe that some blood is better than others. These humans with better blood is resulted from a multiple of things: a family with wealth, a family with a bloodline, a family with connections, a family that is famous or infamous for certain actions, both good and bad. But it all comes down to the family that you were born in. To some it's simply not fair that others get to be born into something great while they have to struggle every moment of their life. All because of one little thing that we call blood. But, then again, one must always remember that all men are not created equal, thought Naruto as he saw a drop of his blood fall to the ground. The sun was already setting, creating a beautiful sunset that filled the sky with orange and purple. He could even see the stars in the sky and how night was approaching in the opposite direction of the setting sun. He felt the chilling wind blowing against him, yet thought nothing more of it than feeling a sense of comfort from the view. Currently Naruto is located on one of the highest trees in Konoha near the training ground that he was recently using. His brother had just left a few minutes ago. Shisui was training him in two main subjects, Genjutsu and Kenjutsu. Genjutsu was one of Shisui's best skills. He could truly be considered a prodigy in the art of Genjutsu. Not even Itachi could match him in his use of it. Though there is no denying that Itachi is skilled in being a ninja, but he couldn't match Shisui in Genjutsu. Knowing this, Naruto would be a fool to not learn from the best about one of his greatest strengths. As for Kenjutsu, Naruto requested it. He found the art to be an interesting one, or at least one that he could admire. The way that Naruto thought about it was that if you go back in time, current ninja tools were created for another primary use than killing. For instance, kunai were used by farmers for digging holes and prying things apart. But the sword was created with one purpose in mind: to kill. Naruto admired a tool that had such a simple existence yet was so wrapped in complexities of humanity. Through this admiration came respect to properly handle a blade. Thus was the reason why he was bleeding. He had been training all day long with his brother that resulted from getting slightly injured. It wasn't bad enough that he needed Shisui's help in bandaging the wounds, but they still bled a bit. Still, his brother would have insisted on helping him even though it wasn't needed. The only reason why he had to leave was because there was a clan meeting that was going to be happening soon and he needed to be a part of it. With Shisui leaving, Naruto decided to go to one of his favorite spots in Konoha. The view truly was a beautiful sight. The sun disappearing over the horizon while the night slowly creeping upon the once blue sky. The stars were slowly but surely peeking through the darkness of the sky. The leaves that blow along the wind without control. Seeing the crows fly across the dark sky. To him, it was a beautiful thing to witness. Sometimes he just sat here for hours looking at the night sky and stars. To him it was a reason to not return home sooner than he would have to. Sometimes he would stay here till the middle of the night and other times he would return early to get more rest in his bed. Seeing how it was going to be night soon and he was exhausted from the earlier training, Naruto decided that he was going to do something that he hated, going back home to get some rest earlier than normal. Making up his mind, Naruto left the comforting scene behind him to go back to his current house. It took him less time than he wished to reach the main part of Konoha where most of the citizens lived. Immediately upon reaching the buildings, he jumped on top of the rooftops of the buildings. It wasn't strange to see ninja using the rooftops as a form of transportation. And with the darkness of the night creeping in, nobody would be able to tell that it was him. Easily using the rooftops as stepping stones, Naruto soon reached his place of residence. He found this place to be annoying. Two little siblings who constantly tried their damn best to annoy him, a mother who always seems to try to help him out yet he knew that it was fake, that there was something more than just a mother's love for her child, and a father who places his village and work above his family. And even in those moments when he was with us, Naruto felt the same feeling, the same instinct that told him that this love is fake. He hated the way that his mother and father acted, as if there was something more that stopped them from being a loving family. Others wouldn't be able to tell, hell he was certain he wouldn't be able to tell if he was a normal child. But that's the thing, he wasn't normal, and he accepted that quite some time ago. In the beginning it felt like an annoying prick in the back of his skull telling him that something was wrong between him and the rest of his family. Over time this prick evolved into something that surged throughout his body that he could only define as instinct. This eventually became fact when compared the interactions between his parents and his siblings and how they interacted with him. He noticed all the small details that told him that something was different. How, when his mother smiled at his siblings, her face showed pure bliss that only a mother could have. Yet when she tried to give him that same smile he saw how her eyes dimmed tremendously, how her smile wasn't able to reach all the way across like it usually did, how she eventually closed her eyes like she was about to cry. These were only a few things that he noticed. It was why he didn't trust nor accept his parents, because they have been hiding something from him. Something that he knows is important to his life, something that they have continuously been hiding from him from the moment he was born. This reaction wasn't limited to only his parents. The differences in how him and his siblings were treated in the village were as vast as the earth and the sky. He was treated like the non-existent dirt beneath their feet while they were treated like the very air that the villagers needed to live. They were precious. Easily entering the house with the use of the keys, the door opening with a slight creak and closing with a soft sigh. Hearing the sound of feet on ground that indicated that someone was running to the front door. Naruto quickly looked in the direction of the footsteps. He eventually heard the sound of Tou-chan. Right before someone turned the corner of one of the halls. His sibling's 1000-watt smile immediately fell when he saw that it was him. "Oh, it's you." Menma told his big brother. Menma spent a good part of the morning with sister in the Hyuga clan grounds playing with Hinata-chan and Neji. Hinata-chan was simply too cute for him to not talk to. And Neji was pretty fun to spar against. Like him and his sister, they trained every day to become the best they could for their families. Neji wanted to become strong like his father and do his father proud by protecting Hinata-chan. Meanwhile Hinata-chan wanted to make her father and mother proud by becoming a great clan head. Him and his sister loved playing and sparring with them. Not to say that he didn't enjoy playing and sparring with the other clan children. Each one was fun in their own way. With Kiba Inuzuka we had a great time playing with all the little puppies that were around. Naomi didn't really enjoy hanging around the Aburame clan because she didn't like bugs at all, but Shino was still fun in his own way, I guess. Sasuke team was, well, a team. Sure, he enjoyed sparring with Sasuke team because he knew how to give a good spar, but he didn't know why Naomi insisted on spending so much time there. It was little things like this that he enjoyed spending time with other clans in the village. After spending most of the morning playing with Hinata-chan and Neji, his mother forced them to come back to the house for more training. His sister and himself were forced to train for a few hours before dinner was made. His mother was a slave driver, and she was scary. After finally unlocking his chakra all those months back, he could finally begin his journey to becoming the best Hokage ever. His sister had the same dream as him, but he knew that he was going to be Hokage first. The thing that got him really pissed was his perfect brother. On the first week of trying to unlock our chakra, Naruto was able to unlock it. It took him a couple of weeks for him to unlock it. Finally, after unlocking his chakra, he could begin to catch up to his brother. He wouldn't have to be left behind in his shadow anymore. He wouldn't have to constantly see that back of his that said that he wasn't good enough to be Hokage, that he wasn't as good as him. Those cold dark blue eyes that told how he was only an annoyance to him, like a fly. So when he asked his Kachan on help with controlling his chakra, he was expecting to do the same chakra control training that Naruto was, the tree walking training. But she instead told him that they had to start on the leaf exercise. She told him that he had too much chakra and couldn't control it properly yet to perform something like the tree walking exercise. He hated how his brother was already so much better at being a ninja than he was. "Where have you been?" Menma asked his brother. Naruto would normally spend most of the day by himself doing whatever it was that he did. It honestly made Menma curious about what his brother was doing. Maybe whatever he was doing was what was making him stronger than him. If that was the case, then if he knew what it was, then he might be able to get stronger than him. That was something that would make him happy. Finally having his brother see his back instead. HN. Came the reply from his brother, keeping his face as it always was blank. Just looking at him with those strange blue eyes of his. Menma didn't like those eyes, they always felt as if something was looking into him. He saw how his brother's black hair was spiked in all directions without any control over any piece of it. The hair just about reached the bottom of his neck, meanwhile some of the hair in the front created some strands to block some of his eyes while his bangs were growing alongside his jaw. That was another thing that he really hated about his brother, he only said what he wanted to say. Most of the time he didn't want to say anything, so he didn't. The thing was that you would know that he wasn't going to talk to you anymore if he handed you. It meant that he was annoyed at you and that he wasn't going to reply to anything you were going to say. He knew this for fact because of the number of times that it's happened to him and his sister. It just plain pissed him off. Goddamn IT team. Answer M. His loud reply came to a quick end when something hit his head with the force of a falling moon. Looking up from his position on the floor, he saw the one thing that scared him most in this world, his Kachan. How many times have I told you to stop cursing? Kushina scolded her youngest son. Honestly, the boy just couldn't stop himself from cursing out people that really annoyed him. She supposed that he got it from her, along with the verbal tick that both of her youngest children had. He was able to stop cursing in public for the most part, but she just couldn't stop him from cursing just one person, his elder brother, Naruto. He stood there silently as he saw her scold Menma on cursing his brother. After finally stopping her scolding of the youngest of the siblings, she turned her attention to the eldest. She saw him looking at them with those blue fox eyes. How those eyes reminded her so much of the fox that she once held within her. Just looking at them was enough to cause a wrenching feeling inside her gut. He stood at about 4 foot 1 inches, 4'1", a tall height for his age. Simply judging from how tall he is now, she knew that he was going to be taller than both her and Minato. He looked as if he had a good layer of muscle on him that suggested training, and he had long black hair that just about reached his neck. There was some fringe that covered his face and almost jaw-length bangs. Some part of her wanted to take him out immediately and get it cut. He was already showing signs of having aristocratic features, a sharp chin, a strong jaw, angled cheekbones. It was during this inspection of her eldest child that she noticed some blood on his person. As soon as she was about to ask what happened, he immediately began to move upstairs and out of her sight. Letting out a sad sigh. "We should get back to your sister or else she'll wonder where we went." After telling her youngest son her words, she sent another saddened glance to where Naruto went. She was certain that that wasn't going to be the last depressed glance either. After hearing his Kachan's words, Menma had planned on immediately going to the dining room where his sister Naomi was. But just when he was about to turn and leave, he looked up to his mother's face. He saw just how sad she was, and he saw her looking in his brother's direction as he disappeared behind another wall. This was just another reason why Naruto pissed him off so much. His Kachan was one of the best moms ever. She looked after all of them, she helped all of us when we were sad, she loved us so much without wanting anything. Yet for some reason, when Naruto was around she always got so sad. He would never forgive his brother for hurting her. He didn't even need his eyes to know where to go. He knew just where to place his foot so that not even the sharpest of ears could hear a creak. Eventually he came to the closed door of his room. The first thing he did was to look on the ground to see if anyone had broken the pencil lead that was positioned on top of the door hinge. Verifying that it was still in one piece, he removed the lead fragment. Taking the base of his doorknob, he moved the circular piece of metal exactly 49 degrees clockwise. Pushing the door just a smidge, he looked down to the floor where a near-invisible wire was located. Quite obviously this was a trap for anyone foolish enough to enter his room without permission. He only began using such things after he came back one day noticing how some of his things were moved. He had everything in his room set up in a specific way so that if anyone even entered his room he would be able to tell. Easily disabling the trap that he built, he slowly entered his room. It was amusing how he called it his room even though it never felt like it. After all, it wasn't his. Carefully removing his shirt as to not further aggravate his wounds, Naruto threw the shirt into a bin that had other clothing. Walking over to the furthest plank in the farthest left corner of the room, he removed the top plank to reveal a compartment underneath. The container contained some of his savings, a training kunai, and a few pieces of junk that he would tell others are his valuables. Removing the pieces from the compartment, Naruto used the training kunai to prop up the fake bottom. Naruto quickly pulled up the fake bottom of the hidden compartment. Inside of this new location, Naruto pulled out a medical kit. Walking over to his bed, he began to examine the wounds that he had obtained from Shisui. A good amount of them were nothing more than superficial wounds or bruises that came when Shisui hit him with his hilt. The only real wound that he would need to redress would be the one on his arm. The wound itself was not as bad as it appeared, but Naruto knew that if he left it like that it could result in it becoming infected. Even though his body's natural life force would soon destroy the infection and close the wound, the process would be sped up by cleaning and redressing it. Knowing that Minato would be returning soon and that his arrival would signal the beginning of dinner, Naruto quickly irrigated his wound with soap and water, then redressed it. Hearing the front door being opened, Naruto knew that his father had returned from his duties as Hokage. Naruto sometimes wondered what that word meant to others. To some it meant being the strongest in the village, to others it meant true recognition like Menma foolishly believed it to be. To Naruto, he saw that title as "Dinner's ready," Kushina shouted to the rest of the household. She simply cannot keep her mouth shut for long, were some of the thoughts going through Naruto's head as he quickly donned another black shirt and left the room. Before leaving, he quickly set up his tripwire and redialed his doorknob's base. Easily making his way through the dark hall where his room was located, Naruto took his time heading down the stairs. After all, he would rather have Menma and Naomi make their usual very loud entrance and have Minato and Kushina focus their attention on them so that he could eat his food without having to answer pointless questions. They were annoying. Entering the dining room, the scene that he came upon was one that he had already predicted. Menma and Naomi were practically swallowing all the ramen. Meanwhile, Kosan was trying to stop them from eating so fast before they choked, and Tosan was watching this scene in happiness. Quickly taking a seat at the end of the table, Naruto proceeded to obtain some of the more thoroughly nutritious food. After choosing his food, he began eating quietly, easily ignoring most of the things that the others around the table were conversing about. With a practiced ease, he focused his thoughts more on finishing quickly so that he could get his rest. Since Naruto decided to focus his current energy on eating his food instead of chatting like everyone else, he easily finished his food before the others. Picking up his dishes, he began to clean them. Kushina, apparently realizing that he was already done, made to walk over to him. Kushina noticed that her eldest son was already done eating his food and that he began to get up with the dishes to the sink. Knowing that he was about to begin washing them, she got out of her seat and walked toward him. "Just leave them there, I can clean them later." It wasn't that she didn't appreciate the help, but it was just that ever since she could remember, Naruto always did things on his own. From leaving the house to training to taking care of most of his basic needs. She knew that he once obtained his own food, she knew that he got it because he never came down for dinner for weeks. Then for some reason he just began showing up again. The only exception to this was the training to unlock his chakra, but even then she knew that he could somehow find a way to unlock it on his own. Naruto was smart enough to do that. It was just that, since so long ago, she'd never been able to feel like she was being a mother to him. Whenever she tried, he always just continued what he wanted to do, just as he was now. Naruto had only turned his head to look at her before he resumed cleaning the dishes that he used. Kushina let loose a sad sigh because she knew that he would just ignore her and continue doing what he wanted. Turning back, she walked back to the dining room where she saw both Menma and Naomi choking on the ramen that they were eating. She quickly appeared behind the two and hit their backs with the palms of her hands. This resulted in the two to cough up the ramen that they were just choking on. "What did I say about eating so fast?" came her voice with a sickly sweet tone. Seeing Kushina leaving him to his own being, he finished washing the dishes that he used for dinner. He could hear the sounds of his foolish siblings squeaking in terror. His mind didn't even wonder when he heard their terrified voices. Leaving the first floor to go to his room on the second, Naruto decided to go to bed in a short time. He knew that going to sleep with a full stomach could cause some sickness the next day, so he relented by reading one of the books that he had obtained from a secret and hidden location. Quite some time ago, Shisui had taught him what a nuke nin or a rogue ninja was. Someone who had either abandoned or betrayed their village and was cast out of the village, to forever be hunted by them. During this time, Shisui had shown him the bingo book, the book that gave information on various ninja. This information had included whether the ninja was indeed a nuke nin or not. It was then that Naruto was curious about the nuke nins from Konoha. Being such a large village with such a large military had meant that there must have at least been a few. As Naruto was flipping through the bingo book in Konoha's section, there was one group of individuals that interested him a bit. It was the S-ranked section. One criminal that popped out to him was the famous snake Sani Orochimaru. The bingo book said that one of his reasons for deserting Konoha was because of experimentation. This led to Naruto questioning one thing: where could he perform these experiments without getting caught, at least for a good while? Following this line of reasoning, Naruto deduced that he had to have labs hidden all around Konoha. Orochimaru was too well known that he couldn't just disappear in one spot over and over again. As such, he must have had a hidden network of passages that led to various labs. Coming to this realization made Naruto come to another, that there could still very well be other labs that are still hidden. If Naruto judged Orochimaru correctly, then he must be the type of person to have hidden multiple things. And even when you discover everything, that would simply be a trick to fool you into believing that that was all there is. He would be just like a snake to always have something else hidden in that burrow of his. With this new information in hand, Naruto took it upon himself to discover at least one of these labs or this network. Knowing that they wouldn't be hidden where just anyone could discover them, that meant that Naruto would have to use some of his layouts of the village to try guessing where it was most likely Orochimaru would set up his labs. Then he would have to take into account how easily accessible they were, along with the possibility of traps that could possibility of stopping anyone from continuing further. It was only after a few weeks of searching that Naruto was able to discover a location of one of the labs. Since Naruto usually trained for most of the day, that only really left the night to search. It took some clever thinking on his part to guess where this lab was located. The primary defense in this case wasn't an unusually difficult trap, but simply where the lab existed was what led to many not even contemplating venturing there. The sewers. They were well connected and had many points of entry. It would be foolish of Orochimaru to not use them to his advantage. And Naruto was obviously correct from his assumptions. Naruto deduced that Orochimaru would hide his lab within the sewers that were near a sewer cover that had a location that was both easily connected to primary traveling roads and also still hidden from view of anyone possibly following him. This reasoning is what led to Naruto to discovering a hidden lab in the sewers. The door to the lab was of course booby-trapped along with various halls past the lab. Naruto was able to bypass these traps through use of chakra, his training, and his mind. When Naruto finally got to the lab section, he discovered a mass of wealth that was hidden right underneath the village's noses. Scrolls and books that ranged from chakra theory to the anatomy of the human body to history. It truly was a treasure trove of information. After some thinking, he decided to keep this room a secret from everyone, even his brother. It wasn't that he didn't trust Shisui, but he knew that Shisui was still a ninja for Konoha, and as such he would be stuck between trying to keep his word to him and doing his duty to report to the Hokage about the lab. Knowing Shisui, he would think that Orochimaru's lab was a dangerous place for him and that one wrong misstep could end him. His protectiveness as an older brother would be the final push to go to the Hokage. It would be easier on both of them if he simply kept this place a secret. Naruto wanted to continue finding more hidden labs like this. The amount of knowledge that he found in just this one was amazing. If he could find similar amounts of wisdom in other labs, then it would truly help improve his growth as both a shinobi and as a person. But for now he wanted to uncover any secrets that the current lab may have before trying to move on to the others. Before leaving, he took a few books that he believed would prove useful improving himself. The book that he detailed discoveries of chakra, both internal and external the body. It spoke of how chakra would naturally dissipate in the air unless certain actions were taken. While it also spoke of how the chakra ran through the body through a thing called a chakra system and unique details of this system. It was in fact Orochimaru himself who created this journal. It's where he created a concise and detailed takings of his discoveries. Soon enough Naruto knew that it was time to head to bed. So tucking the book away into the secret compartment that he had created, Naruto headed off to bed. He forced his mind to calm itself from all the questions that appeared through reading the book, along with his thoughts on the academy and his current situation with the rest of his family. Naruto was only able to calm himself because of one reason, because he knew that his answers would one day come to him. One day. But for now the best thing for him was sleep. Rebirth. 1 year later. Noticing a familiar glint of sunlight, Naruto quickly ducked his head beneath the biting steel of his brother's blade. In retaliation, Naruto grabbed a kunai with his left hand and threw the smaller blade at Shisui. Naruto, already knowing that Shisui would be able to either dodge or block the kunai, moved in to attack him by using the blade that he gripped in his right hand. Hearing a clang and seeing the kunai that he recently threw falling to his right, Naruto knew that Shisui had decided to block the kunai by using his sword. Streaking fluidly by the knife, Naruto attempted to bisect Shisui at the waist. Shisui, not wanting that, blocked his younger brother's attack by placing his blade in a perpendicular fashion to that of Naruto's. "You've gotten better, Naruto," Shisui told his younger sibling through gritted teeth. Even though Naruto was only 7, he had enough strength that Shisui couldn't underestimate him for a moment, or else he wouldn't be okay. The struggle came to an end when Naruto performed a snap kick with his right leg. Seeing the attack coming caused Shisui to jump a good distance behind him. Hearing the distinct sound of air being cut made Shisui jump to the underside of the tree that he was beneath. Looking down, he saw Naruto there with his blade firmly in his hand. He noticed a few strands of his hair falling from where he was moments ago. "Oi oi, we're supposed to be training, not killing each other," Shisui yelled at Naruto. while on the inside Shisui was contemplating two different thoughts. One was to always keep at least one very aware eye on Naruto. This action or thought is what created the second thought. It was that he was quite impressed with Naruto's speed. Naruto may have been young, yet he was extremely fast. If Shisui had to say, Naruto would be able to match nearly any Chunin. This line of thought was quickly cut off when Naruto started running up the abnormally large tree with a speed that no normal 7-year-old could ever possess. Running towards him to meet in the center of the trunk of the tree. The familiar sounds of metal striking metal were once again heard throughout the training grounds. If one were to walk into the training ground, they would describe the battle between the two brothers as a beautiful dance. You could see the fluid movements that each possessed. Naruto attempted to slither his blade into the outer part of Shisui's sword arm, knowing that it would force an awkward angle in which to block against. Yet that is exactly what his brother was able to do, this by moving his wrist in a fan-like movement with his blade following. The momentum from the blade caused Naruto's to bounce off of Shisui's, quickly spinning with the momentum caused from Shisui's block. Naruto spun in a full circle to slash at Shisui and his unprotected side. Seeing what Naruto was planning, Shisui jumped straight up into the air, while at the same time he impaled his sword into the tightly packed dirt. Immediately gaining his balance on his sword, Shisui felt more than he heard the vibration running through his blade that was caused from Naruto's own. Bringing his foot down to kick Naruto in the chest, Shisui's plan worked, somewhat. At the moment of impact, Naruto was able to bring up his sword to intercept his kick. Noticing the sharp edge of the blade facing his foot when it was coming up caused Shisui to send a healthy amount of chakra into his foot to create something akin to a shield of energy around his foot. The truth behind this technique is in fact a more advanced version of the leaf floating exercise. In the exercise you needed to keep a steady amount of chakra running through your hands so that you could make a leaf float without it being blown off. What he did was instead run chakra through his foot, expelling it outward so that the chakra would stop the blade from reaching his foot. That was really all that he needed, seeing that Naruto's blade was really only meant to help lessen the blow to his chest. The chakra that Shisui expelled caused his blade to stop short of reaching his foot. Disappointing, Naruto thought, yet even with this thought Naruto continued to hold on to both the hilt and the backside of the top of his blade. Just as he expected, he felt the pressure from the strength of Shisui's kick. Knowing that he was in the less favorable position, Naruto jumped with a kick to increase the distance between two brothers. Flipping in the air, Naruto landed with his feet on bottom half of a tree's trunk. Moving his head up to look up at Shisui, he saw his opponent sheath his blade, indicating the end of the spar. "Let's stop here for the day." Shisui spoke to Naruto. "After all, we wouldn't want to hurt that pretty face of yours the day before going to the academy." With a teasing smile on his face, he knew that Naruto saw no real purpose in going and that the only reason why he was because he asked him to. That and if the son of the Hokage didn't go to the academy to become a shinobi, it would look bad to the rest of the world. Besides that, Naruto is a Jinchuriki. If he doesn't officially start training to become a ninja, then the council would start taking actions. After all, they couldn't afford to have an untrained weapon, especially one that was easily disposable in their eyes. Not that Shisui would ever let that happen. But if the entire problem could be avoided by having Naruto enter the academy, then that would be best. Looking back at Naruto, he couldn't help but think how much he grew in this past year. Standing taller at a height of 4 foot and 4 inches, 4'4". He had a more visible line of muscle around his body and his hair grew so that it now reached just below the tops of his shoulders. His face became more angular with his black hair still fringing the sides of his face and covering his forehead and some of his eyes. Naruto continued to exceed tremendously in his training of the shinobi arts. He doubted that anybody at the academy would ever be able to match his little brother. Give it a few more years and he knew that Naruto would be stronger than him. It was such a funny thought. "It's almost sunset, we should be getting back. You know why I can't go with you to the academy?" Shisui told him. A nod was followed after hearing his brother's words. There was still high tension between the village and the Uchiha clan. If one of their most famed members was found escorting one of the Jinchuriki to the academy, people would think that he was trying to control him. It could result in a massive confrontation that might spark the beginning of a civil war. The only reason why they were even together now was because of how secure they made this training ground. They planted things from booby traps to fuinjutsu to using Shisui's crows as a lookout. "I know that you don't really want to go to the academy, and that the only real reason why you're going is because I asked. But, try to have fun." Shisui asked him. "No promises," was his nearly silent reply. It was the same reply as always. "I understand." And he did. Truly. Naruto simply grew up too fast. Compared to the others in his class, he would likely feel that everyone was pathetic. Not under him exactly, but more along the lines of being too stupid to really comprehend what's happening around them. Now that he was thinking about it, Naruto might actually end up in Sasuke's class. Naruto would probably be the eldest in that class unless someone was held back. Even though Naruto should have already started the academy, there was an age cutoff date. Any 6-year-old that was born before October could enter the academy. However, Naruto was born in December and the academy declared him too young to begin the class and said that they would have to wait until next year. So he would have to enter the academy a bit older than the other students. Which meant that he also had to go in with his younger brother and sister. Naruto didn't like his siblings, more like he didn't care about them. He once said that they were annoying and childish, but considering that they were children, that was to be expected. Still, Naruto just didn't care for them. It was just another reason why he should go to the academy. Connecting more with his siblings might bring a smile to his face. Giving his little brother a hug. "Take care, little brother." With that said, Shisui turned around and left to go to the Uchiha compound. Annoying thing that was. Not to mention that he's got another mission tomorrow, an escort mission, for another noble, again. Fuck, he hated nobles. Seeing his brother leave, prompted him to go home and get some rest. He had already eaten dinner and wasn't feeling hungry for any snacks. Simply thinking about tomorrow was already giving him a headache. He knew that he was being placed into a class full of children, being placed into a class full of arrogant, conceited, idiotic, asinine, daft, imbecilic children that were noble, common, and shinobi birth. Some of them would likely think that they would become the next Hokage and think that their small amount of training would make them better than anyone and everyone. In the end, they don't matter. If they all died or lived, it wouldn't matter. It was just annoying. Rebirth. Feeling the cold fog float over him and his room, Naruto opened his eyes. He enjoyed this part of the morning, when almost no one was awake, and the sun still hadn't fully come out to burn away the fog. The fog kept things hidden. It was nice and cool. Getting out of bed and quickly placing on his clothing for the day, which consisted of a fishnet shirt with a black shirt and black cargo shorts with black sandals. Normally at this point he would proceed to attach his ninja equipment such as the thigh strap, ninja pouches, and sometimes small bits of armor. If he did that, people would begin to question how a 7-year-old was able to come by such equipment on the first day at the academy. Deciding to leave the equipment inside of his hidden compartments, Naruto fixed his room. After ensuring that everything was in order and the traps all in place, Naruto left to get something to eat. Naruto left the house after eating and with a backpack of essentials for the day like food and water. Closing the gate behind him, Naruto began his walk through the fog and streets of Konoha to the academy. Fortunately there was no one out at this time except the few bakers and shop owners who needed to get up this early for a good start on their day. They were so focused and sleep-deprived that they didn't even notice Naruto walking by. The academy was located a small distance away from the Hokage Tower. It was actually a rather large building. But taking into consideration the different age groups with different classes that varied from nin, tai, and genjutsu, along with the fact that they were training the next generation of shinobi, the size was quite expected of one of the best ninja villages. Entering the gates and walking past an old tree with a swing on it, Naruto entered through the 2 wooden doors of the academy. Naruto quickly noticed that both doors were unlocked, meaning that someone was still here either working or preparing. Regardless, Naruto continued to the classroom he was assigned. The schedules for the new students are sent to their homes and from there their parents will take them to the academy. The parents would bring their children to the wooden doors of the academy and the children would have to find their way through the academy to their homeroom. Before coming here, Naruto was able to memorize his schedule and had a basic layout of the academy from previous experiences. Entering his classroom of 114, Naruto took a look at the classroom. It was a normal classroom that had desk rows going up at each step. The wall on the far side of the classroom was lined with windows that provided a look into the outside world. Outside was the track and training ground for the academy. Taking in all the possible entrances and exits, Naruto made his way to the far right of the classroom that would provide a nice shadow and an easy escape route. Once seated, Naruto proceeded to take out one of his books that he obtained from Orochimaru's library. It was a book on chakra and its uses. It was a simple enough book that if anyone picked it up, no one would think much on it. However, if one carefully read it, they would find that it was greatly more complex than it would initially suggest. The cover of the book was a simple black hardcover that was blank. With his mind now occupied, Naruto began his wait for the children. Rebirth. Ah, I should have gone to bed sooner. Iruka moaned throughout the empty hallway. It was almost 5 in the morning and here he was working. Honestly, he should be at home sleeping in his nice warm bed. But he here was, working. He had to get here early to make sure that everything was set up properly. After all, He was going to be teaching the heirs of the most prominent families in Konoha. Even the Hokage's children were going to be his students. He was as excited as he was anxious. It was for this reason that he was here at this ungodly hour. Ensuring that he had all of his notes and plans completed and properly organized. First thing he needed to do was get a proper grasp of the amount of knowledge and training each of his students had. Some of the students were orphans, others were of common birth, and others still were of noble birth. There were so many different backgrounds that his students could fall under that he needed to know more about them. Sure, he had some generic profiles on some of them, but that didn't always fully cover everything about them. Besides that, with a class with this much potential, it should have at least one genius. It would be his duty to make sure that not only that individual but also each and every single one of his students received the proper education they came for. Coming to a halt in front of room 114, Iruka took in a deep breath to calm some of his nerves. Opening the door, he quickly walked in and closed the door behind him. He immediately walked towards the teacher's desk that was in the front of the classroom. Pulling up his chair, he began to go through his notes inside of the draw desk and got to work. Seeing the sun begin to peek through the windows of the classroom, Iruka decided that he should take a small break and relax his mind for a moment. Stretching his arms upward until feeling that satisfied crack in his back, Iruka felt some of the tension on his back release. Looking up at the desk that were soon to be filled with students, he couldn't help but look around the room. Aha! Iruka couldn't help the scream that was let loose from his lips. He clearly felt the impact of his ass hitting the ground. But, he honestly couldn't bring himself to care. He was more focused on the fact that there was someone in the room with him for who knows how long. What the hell? Looking closer, he could see that the person was sitting in the farthest back seat closest to the window. The person appeared to be a kid and they were reading something. Getting his wits about him, Iruka assumed that this was probably one of his students who came early, very early. The student also hadn't moved once through all his screaming besides flipping the pages in his book. Cough, cough, excuse me, but who are you? Iruka questioned his assumed student. A dead silence with the exception of a page being flipped was the answer that Iruka received. Iruka could feel the awkwardness in the air. It felt like another form of gravity exerting its own pressure on him. Yet it didn't seem to affect the kid at all. But honestly, who did this kid think he was? Blatantly ignoring a teacher when asking a direct question like that. Kids these days really didn't have any manners. Hey! Who Iruka was about to ask again in a more stern tone when he was interrupted. It is impolite to ask others their name without first introducing yourself. Came a whisper-like reply with a feeling of ice. Hearing his words, Iruka immediately started blushing. First day on the job and he was already being corrected by a kid. And he was thinking that the brat didn't have any manners when it was him who didn't have any manners. You're correct and I apologize. My name is Umino Iruka, I will be the teacher for homeroom class 114. And you are? A thin sliver of sunlight finally peeked through the fog hanging thick in the air. The light shot straight through the window in front of the kid, partially illuminating some of the child and his book. The assumed student slowly closed his book and set it down on top of the desk he was sitting at. Finally being able to see some of the child's features, Iruka could safely say that it was a he instead of a she. He had long black hair that went down to his shoulders with black clothes, and when he looked Iruka saw a pair of fox eyes that seemed to burn through the darkness. I am Namikaze Naruto, was the reply to his question. Not that he needed it after seeing his eyes. He could have known who it was just by looking at his eyes. Namikaze Naruto, eldest son of the Hokage, and Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi soul. Looking at those eyes, he couldn't help but admitting that maybe those rumors about him really were true. Most of the time, Iruka tried his best not to even think about the Kyuubi. It was that damn beast that murdered his parents. And here it was, sitting right in front of him. Looking down at him. I see, was his reply to Naruto's statement. What else could he say? I hate your living guts. Go die in a hole, you fucking monster. He could, but there were a couple of reasons why he didn't. The first and foremost being that he was the eldest son of the Hokage. Saying that wouldn't go over well with his leader. The second was that according to rumor, the Kyuubi would continue consuming the boy's soul over time. It would still be quite some time until all of the boy's soul is gone. Years probably. After all, the Yondaime's Fuin Jutsu is second to only the Uzumaki's and even in some aspects was said to have matched or exceeded them. But with that in thought, it could be that the boy was still in control, for now at least. After all, why would a beast have any semblance of manners? It is a pleasure meeting you, Naruto, and I look forward to teaching you. Seeing the nod of the boy, Iruka turned around to walk back to his desk. Keeping on guard at all time in case his assumption was incorrect and the boy decided to attack him. Taking his seat without any incident occurring, Iruka looked back toward Naruto and saw the boy reading his book again. Sighing again, Iruka went back to his work. Thus began the most awkward silence of Iruka's life. Rebirth. Namikaze household. With the sun finally rising above the horizon, the fog began to burn from the heat of the sun. It was at this time that the very peace of Konoha was interrupted. Ka-chan. Dou-chan. Wake up. Dada-bio! Bane. Came the simultaneous reply from both children of the Namikaze house. Two 6-year-old kids came rushing into their parents' room, where they were fast asleep. Quickly jumping into their bed, both children tried waking them up. Come on. Today's the first day of the academy, Menma shouted at them. Gods, he couldn't wait to start. This was his first real step in becoming a ninja. In becoming Hokage. In beating his big brother's ass to the ground. Yes, he couldn't wait. Ka-chan. Come on. Wake up already. That was his sister trying to wake up their mother. They had to do rock paper scissors to decide who was going to wake her up. Both of them were scared shitless of her. But they really wanted to get started. So, they took the risk. He must have made someone happy because he won. What? That was his mom, and she looked ready to kill them both. Quickly hugging his little sister in fear, he placed her in front of him, all the while struggling against him. Hey! He was too young and pretty to die yet. It's TTT the FF First DD Day OOFTTHHEAA Academy, KKK Ka-chan. His voice came out more as a whimper than actually words. Kushina looked down at her two children with a face that promised punishment. On the inside, she couldn't help but coo at how adorable both of her babies looked. The academy doesn't start until 8. It's 6:15. We could be asleep for another 30 minutes and still be fine. Okay, so she wasn't a morning person, so sue her. Calm down Kushina-chan, they're both excited. It's only normal for them. Don't you remember when you first went to the academy? The now awake Minato asked his wife. Still too sleepy to realize that he probably just walked straight into the kunai. But also accidentally saving his children. Turning her glare from her children to her husband, Kushina looked as if her hair was going to strangle them all. Eventually sighing, yeah. Go get ready for school kids. Let me and To-san take a shower first and I'll fix some breakfast. Yada. Came the twin screams from the children. Thanks Ka-chan. He couldn't wait. Soon enough but not soon enough for him. Food was made and served onto his plate from his Ka-chan. It was his favorite meal since he knew what food was. Ramen. The food of the gods. In the Namikaze house, the food was a damn near religion. It was respected and feared. Giving the gods proper homage, he began consuming the ambrosia at speeds faster than his father could blink. Not that he was surprised. Spend enough time around him, his sister, and his Ka-chan and you would realize how great ramen truly was. Looking at the time, Menma saw that it was just shy of 7:30. Can we leave now? He asked his parents. Minato looking at the clock then looking at Kushina, seeing the nod she gave him. He immediately sighed, thinking about all the paperwork that was sure to be on his desk when he got to work. Yeah, let's get going. He told them, you guys have everything right. Both of his kids gave him a nod showing that everything was taken care of. He assumed that Kushina had already pre-made them both lunch. Looking at his two kids about ready to leave to the academy for the first time, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as a father and a shinobi. His children were growing up and were going to take the first step to becoming shinobi. Speaking of kids, where's Naruto? Minato asked the rest of his family. Looking at Kushina, he saw her slightly hesitant about the whereabouts of their eldest son. But that wasn't unusual. Naruto was a complicated subject for the Namikaze family, for multiple reasons. Naruto was usually distant from the rest of his family. Even himself, whenever he was home, he barely saw Naruto, if that. It truly worried them. Naruto preferred to be alone than to be in the company of others. Looking down at his two kids, he saw that both of them looked as if they had no clue. This wasn't good. This was a big day for all three of them. It was going to be the first day that they all take their first step in becoming shinobi of Konoha. He wanted to take them to academy and see that first step. He wanted to take all of them. Letting out a sigh, Minato quickly went upstairs to Naruto's room. After knocking, Minato opened the door. Seeing a clean room, Minato closed the door and went downstairs. What he didn't know was that if he took a single step forward, it would have activated one of Naruto's traps. After all, you only find what you're looking for. He wasn't in his room. Minato told the three of them. Taking a quick glance at the time and seeing that they had only just enough time to get to the academy and still be on time, Minato decided that they had to leave. Sigh, we have to leave now if we want to be on time. We'll have to try finding Naruto later. Minato wasn't happy about that. His son should be with him when something big like this was happening. Quickly ensuring that they all had their belongings, the Namikaze family began to head toward the academy. It was fortunate for them that the academy wasn't so far off. With Minato being Hokage, his home was located somewhat near the Hokage Tower. That meant that he wasn't that far from the academy either. The entire walk was filled with the sound of what Menma and his little princess wanted to do as shinobi. Beat the bad guys and be the hero. It was so cute to him. He wanted them to stay like this forever. He knew that that wouldn't happen. But he was thankful for the opportunity to see it. After 3 shinobi world wars, there was finally a moment of peace. The next generation has been the first generation since before the warring clan era to be able to live without being exposed to war. To Minato, who fought on the front lines of the Third War, he couldn't have been more grateful. It was also why he was sad and disappointed that Naruto wasn't with them. Even if he didn't like the company of others, he should still be here for this, especially since it was the first day of class for him. Late on the first day of class, sigh. Funny, he just noticed how much he was sighing the moment Naruto's name comes up. The boy was going to be the end of him. Finally seeing the academy's wooden gates, both Menma and Naomi began to race to the entrance. Looking at his wife, they both could only smile and shake their heads. Walking the rest of the way, Minato began to notice the increase in traffic as more and more parents began to say goodbye to their children and tell them how proud of them they were. He found both of his kids in a fight over who got to the wooden doors first. Deciding to end the bickering, Minato was about to cut before he saw Kushina about to interfere. Well, he wasn't going to get in the middle of that. He liked his bed. The academy is meant to be the first step in becoming a shinobi of Konoha. Not matter what happens, understand that it is an important step. It can sometimes be challenging, but keep on trying. Both your mother and I are very proud of you. Minato told both of them after Kushina finished subduing them. His words gave birth to 2,000-watt smiles. That's right. Dada Bane. Kushina immediately began blushing, realizing that her verbal tick rose up. Ha-hey, hee. She looked away at the same time as rubbing the back of her head. Both of their kids seemed to go into a deadpan look as they saw their mother begin to blush. But it looked as if they were still quite happy with their words. Now, we are only allowed to take you as far as the front doors. The rest of the way, you have to go yourself. Menma. Remember you're her big brother and that means you have to take care of your little sister if she needs help. Naomi looked put off by this. Meanwhile Menma puffed out his chest in a show of pride. Of course Tosan. Nobody will hurt my little sister. Smirking a little and Naomi, try to keep your brother out of trouble. You know how he is. He told his little princess, who seemed to be quite happy. Menma on the other hand seemed to have his pride blown right out of him. Tosan. Menma began to whine. Enough, your first class is about to begin. Remember that your homeroom class is 114. Oh, and one last thing. Minato began to tell them in a more solemn face than before, try to help Naruto if he needs any. Alright, both of the kids seemed surprised by his request. Looking at each other, both of them nodded and looked back at him. Hi, Tosan. Dong. Hearing the 5-minute warning, Minato quickly told them to hurry up or else they were going to be late. That's the end guys. If you enjoyed then make sure to leave a comment. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.